相棒。 Hello? Okay. I don't know why, but OBS changed my mic. I was like, huh? I only watched 2 seasons of this, by the way. I kind of dropped it at on 3. Good for you! You're lucky. Run away while you can. Don't watch it. I'm just kidding. I don't know. I don't know if it's worth watching it. I watch it anyway just because I'm nosy. I'm curious. Windows changed my mic on me, so one of my VODs sounds awful. Yeah, OBS like randomly changed my mic. Malding. I am malding. I'm already malding. Good lord. Okay, okay. Wait, let me switch around my OBS layout. I'm getting annoyed as we speak. Yeah, let me change my OBS layout so I can see the chat better while I present my information. I wonder what music I should use. Because this music probably doesn't fit. Who burned their eyes out with the eclipse, by the way? There was an eclipse? I missed it. I accept all information coming from Aki at face value. Good, good, good. This is an extremely accurate retelling. So you don't need to watch it at all. Because I'm going to tell you everything. Source of my truth, that's what I'm saying. That's what we're here for. In the current age of lies. Of lies and AI and fibs. I don't know why I said fib. Fibs. I am the source of truth. See, there's an eclipse, but I don't know if it was all over. Oh, I don't know then. Usually my mom would have said something. But maybe we were just both too busy. She wanted to go watch the Taylor Swift concert movie, so she like booked tickets for us and I went with her. It was pretty good, it was fun. A lot of throwback songs. I was like, when I listened, I was like, whoa, she sang this when I was like 8 years old. And my mom's like in love with her now. Yeah, it was nice though. It's funny because a lot of the people in the audience would like sing along. Or like the front row straight up like got out of their seat. It's kind of funny. Okay, let me open my websites so that I don't forget what happened in each episode. Also, disclaimer, I have already forgotten most of Season 4, and it's because I was really frustrated with it. So I think I wiped it out. But I'll try my best. Oh, there was an eclipse. Look at that. I completely missed it. Huh. That's sad. Selected memory. Exactly, exactly. I don't know what song to use. Maybe we should do coffee. Coffee time. How's the music volume? Is okay? Is okay, is okay. Or too loud. That's what this is called. It's called the dark fragrance of coffee or something. It's from Ace Attorney. It's Godot's theme. The bitter, dark taste of coffee. Oh yes. Let me take a sip of water. I'm about to get heated. Don't worry though, I don't get heated until Season 4. Okay. Imagine how terrifying Eclipse was for early people. Sun suddenly locked out, the ones who looked at it suddenly blinded. No! another disclaimer. My stylus, like, is bugs out. It doesn't work. I'm not sure why. Which is why my handwriting is horrendous here. And I might have to just use my mouse. No, golden happy. Okay. Let me get set up. I'm gonna try to limit myself to like maybe 45 minutes per season. Cause I don't wanna go for 4 hours. I have a life! Contrary to popular belief. Alright, got my websites open. 4 hour stream, let's go! Okay. This is your life. It is. No, it's your life. It's about you! Okay, I'm gonna get rid of Miguel now. Miguel! Season 1! Okay, I'm gonna set the scene. Welcome to Season 1 of You. Our main character is this dude, Joe. I compressed his image, so he's very compressed here. There he is, peeking through the door like a creep! What a creep! These are our main characters for Season 1. My mouse disappeared. There you go. It's so Jover. It is! It really is. This whole show is Jover. It's completely Jover. Okay, let me move my mic. So this is Joe, okay? Joe Goldberg. Alright? Now, we're starting in Season 1. Episode 1. So, it all begins with a very cute meeting, okay? You know when you meet someone and you're immediately attracted to them? I wouldn't know. Actually, I would know. Looks at my framed picture. Anyways. So you meet someone and you're like, right away you're like, oh my goodness, my heart is racing, it's pounding. I'm already making things up about this person in my imagination. I'm like imagining our life together. I'm wondering what kind of person they are. It's like the love at first sight kind of thing, okay? That's what happens to our boy Joe. Alright? So, very beautiful blonde woman. Her name's Gwen. Her full name is Guinevere Beck. I forgot why her name's Guinevere, but it's like a very special name, okay? But she goes by Gwen. So this is Gwen. No, she doesn't go by Gwen. She goes by Beck. She goes by her last name. I don't know why. So she goes by Beck. Maybe it's because Guinevere's too, you know. Anyways, so she goes by Beck. So Beck walks into a bookstore. Beautiful blonde lady. She's so cute. So pretty and cute. She's looking at books. And Joe is like, oh. And then Joe always starts his monologue. This is why it's called You, by the way. Joe always starts his like little monologues because he talks to himself a lot. He's like, you're so beautiful. He's like, you're gorgeous. And he's like watching her pick out books and stuff. And he's like, I wonder what type of books you're into. And then he's like looking at the authors that she's picking out. And he's like assuming things about her from the authors that she's picking out, right? He's like, oh, I see you like those type of stories. I see you're this kind of girl, you know, you're educated, you're based, you're well knowledged. And then he's like, oh my goodness, she's so hot. She's hot and smart. Okay, so that's what he's thinking at this point. Hi Arrow, are you making a conspiracy board again? Yes. Welcome to my Netflix show You Season 1 to 4 recap. It's very accurate retelling. So he's like, in his head, this is all in his head by the way, he's just staring at her. So in his head he's like, god damn, she's smoking hot, she's beautiful, she's intelligent, she's well read, like she's based, she reads all the based authors. This is what he's thinking, okay? So he's making up her like entire personality in his head already. And then she walks up to the desk, and she's like, "Hey, can I check these out, please?" And then he's like, "Sure." And this is the first time he's like talking to her, by the way. This whole time it's like he's been monologuing in his head. And then he's like, "Sure." And he's like checking out the books, and he's like trying to turn up the Riz factor, right? So he's like trying to think about what to say. So he's like, "I see you like this author and stuff." And then she's like, "Yeah, I do." And then they go like back and forth. They have a bit of like smart bantering, you know? He's like, "Some people like to read blah blah blah, ha ha ha." And then she's like, "Ha ha ha ha." And he's like, "I didn't peg you for the author, insert author name type." So they're like chatting it up. And she's like, "This guy's pretty cool." And then he's like trying to Riz her up, right? So then the guys in the line are like, "Hey, move the line. We're all waiting online." And then he's like, in his head, he's like, "Shut up." He's like, "I'm trying to, shut up. I'm trying to hit on this girl." And then he's like, "Okay, well, see you like next time. I recommend you getting this book," or something like that. And she's like, "Okay." And then she leaves, right? So you're like, okay, that was pretty cute, right? Sure, his little monologue thing was a bit creepy, but maybe that's just because I'm like not a romantic, right? Maybe it's just because I don't know what romance is. Maybe it's just because I don't get it. Maybe people do have those romantic monologues in their head, right? So off the bat, I was like, that was super cheesy. I went into this show blind, by the way, so I had no idea what was happening. I was like, that was so cheesy, man. Like, I don't know if he's like creepy or like this is just what it's like, right? Aki moment. And the it was pretty it was pretty romancy, because for season 1 the poster they showed was also like pretty generic romancy poster. Like you could tell things were gonna get steamy. I was like, you know what? I need like a trashy romance show to watch while I do work. So that's why I started watching it. Little did I know. Anyways, so Beck leaves the bookstore, and you're like, that was pretty cute. And then Joe gets off work, and then he starts like Googling her, and you're like, okay. So he Googles her, he finds like her Instagram, he's like finding her Facebook, he like looks through her stuff. I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, people do that now, right? It's pretty common for people to like be searching each other up, right? So I'm like, okay, I guess he's like super smitten with her. But he starts going in. He's looking through all her photos. He's like, on this day, she went blah, blah, blah. And he's looking through photos, and he's like, I see you like this kind of stuff. He's like monologuing in his head. And he's like, oh, we like this kind of stuff. We both like this kind of stuff. He's looking through her Facebook. He's looking through everything. He's like looking through her friends and stuff. And he's like, oh, I didn't expect like a girl of your S-tier qualities to be hanging out with girls like this. So he doesn't like her friends. And do they? I don't know. So, he's cyber stalking her, okay? Just putting it bluntly. He's stalking her. And he's like, okay. And then, he tracks all of her social media and then finds her address. And normally you're like, you don't do anything, right? But no, this guy, he puts on his cap, his baseball cap, which is a pretty important, I guess, item in this story. Let me draw a baseball cap with my mouse real quick. That's a baseball cap. Very important to him. I need you to know this is not okay. It isn't? Thanks for telling me, Lance. I'll make sure to cross that off my list now. So he puts on his baseball cap, and he goes to her address. And he's like standing behind this like pole, I guess. And he's like staring through her window. He's like, And he's like watching her. And then he starts reading her life again, right? Monologuing in his head, making up all this stuff about her. And then he's like, I see, you're like a broke poetry grad student who's falling into serious debt trying to keep up with her socialite friends from college. And then she picks up the phone, she's talking on the phone, and he finds out that she has a boyfriend, and he's like, no! And he's like on his knees, he's like, no! He's like losing it, okay? No, he didn't lose it like that publicly, but in his head, he was like, he's like, she has a boyfriend, and then he listens in on their phone call because he's a creep. It should have been me, not him. Yeah, and then he's like listening on the phone, and he basically can tell from the phone call and also through her social media that she's dating this like super douchey guy named Benjamin J. Ashby III. So you're like, oh, he's a Nepo kid because he has the third in his name. But he goes by Benji. So she's dating this guy named Benji who's like an absolute douche. And he's trying to launch like an artisanal soda brand, okay? A very innovative soda brand. He's trying to be an entrepreneur. You know how it is. Everyone these days trying to set their own business, self-made stuff. And then Joe decides, you know, he's like, Beck is too good for these people. He puts her on a pedestal already. He's like, Beck is too good for these people. She's too good for Benji. She's too good for her stupid socialite friends. And then he's like, all her friends are thoughts. That's like what he's thinking. So then, oh god, I forgot not the most important part. The part that like completely threw me off. I think it's in episode 1. Yeah, it is. So she starts like reading stuff, and then he's like watching her, and then she starts getting it on. She's getting it on with herself, if you know what I mean. And he's watching, and he's like, ooh. He's like, oh. And he's like watching, and he's like, oh my goodness. He's like talking in his head. He's like, oh, you're so naughty. It's like, oh, cringing. And then, yeah, this is the part that throws me off. The other parts, I was like, okay. So she starts like getting it on with herself, and he's like, oh, I would love it if you were doing that to me, like to the thought of me or something. I don't know. He's trying to insert himself into like her imagination. He's like, oh, I wish I was with you. And he's like watching her the whole time, and it's like, Jesus Christ. Anyways, she's done, and then he's like, all she needs is me to make her life better. I can change her life. So then she leaves the apartment, and after she leaves, he breaks into her apartment. He breaks in, he's snooping through her stuff, her computer, her texts, and her underwear drawer. And he's like, maybe I should take one. And the self-insert is real though, it is. And then he's like, this is for her own good. That's what he's thinking. This is for her own good. What kind of show is this again? So I went into this blind, and from the poster and everything of season 1, it looked like just like one of those trashy like romance shows, you know, you kind of watch to like take up time. I wanted something to watch while I was working, right? But then I was watching it more, and I was like, oh, this is getting kind of this is Are you sure this isn't true crime? Now hold your horses, okay? We're not up to the worst of the stuff yet. And then, he's like, he's looking through her stuff, and he's like, I'm not being a creep. Oh, he does this throughout the whole show, by the way. He like tries to justify things to himself so that like, he's like, I'm not this person, right? So he's like, I'm not a creep. Like, I'm not breaking into her apartment to do bad things to her. I'm breaking in because I need to get to know her better, so that I can make her life better. I can like change her for the better, you know? So he's trying to justify it all to himself. And then he almost gets caught because she's like on her way home. But then he hides in her shower, as you do. And then he overhears her on the phone, like figuring out her plans for the rest of the night. And then he's like, I'll be there. He's like, okay. He's like, your plans. He's like rubbing his hands. He's like, your plans? You mean our plans? So then she hangs up, and then her plans were to read poetry at like an open mic night at a place called Greenpoint with her group of girlfriends, you know. So she's reading poetry there, and he's stalking her, obviously, because he followed her to the club. And then he overhears her, like, friends, her little socialite friends, like, just talking smack about her and her poetry. They're like, is she for real? This is so stupid. She sucks. Blah, blah, blah. She's never gonna make it. And then he's like, what the? He's like, your friends suck. Which, like, they do. But I'm like... Anyways. So then... Beck absolutely bombs her open mic. She bombs it, and I'm like, ugh, like shivering the cringe, right? But like, we're talking about this show. All 4 seasons are gonna be cringe, so you're just gonna have to deal with it. So you cringe a little, and you're like, oh, she bombed, but that's okay, you know. You go get him, Beck. I love you, Beck. And then so she like drank a lot, she got drunk, and then she's like humiliated. She's waiting for the train back to Manhattan because of course this happens in the Big Apple. And then she's like drunk, and she's rage texting her douche boyfriend Benji on the edge of the subway platform. And then she's like texting so angrily that she falls onto the tracks. And then good thing Joe was there stalking her, right? Joe was like, oh my god. And the train's gonna come. And then so Joe white knights, he's like, this is my chance. He dives onto the tracks. He's like, I can do this. And then he like pulls her out of harm's way. And then Beck lands right on top of him. And then he's like, oh my god, this is everything I could have wanted. And then she's like, wait, I know you. She recognizes him, right, from the bookstore. And then she throws up in his face. She's like, because she's like blackout drunk. And then, there we go. Back to a silly hee hee ha ha rom-com. And then, so she vomits on him, and then he steals her phone. You know, no big deal. He steals her phone. So, not exactly, not exactly the hero of the moment. So he takes this chance to steal her phone, and she's like, oh, I'm so sorry. And he's like, don't worry about it. You know, I'm just glad you're safe. And then, he's trying to get the Riz up again, and then they part ways. And then, now, this part, your willingness to not tap out at this moment is, I was gonna say admirable, but I had to know how it was gonna end, because this is just episode 1. So, after this, he goes back home, right? Now, this is another important thing that you're gonna have to keep in mind for the other seasons. Yes, this is all one episode. So something important happens when he goes back to his apartment that you keep in mind. So this kid over here, right? This kid, he lives in Joe's apartment, and he's his neighbor. So, his name's Paco, and you can kind of piece together that Paco is neglected, because he's sitting outside his apartment. There's like screaming and yelling in his apartment, and Paco's sitting outside. So you're like, oh, like you can kind of piece together what's happening. And Joe is super sweet to Paco. He's like talking to him. He's like, hey, is Ron over again? Ron is Paco's stepdad. And then Paco's like, yeah. So Joe gives Paco like a bunch of books, and then like a meatball subs. And then, which is like super sweet. He's like trying to look out for Paco. And this is something like you're gonna keep in mind later, but the one time Joe is like genuinely a good person is when he's trying to help kids that he views as like neglected or like needs help or like is abused kind of thing. And even when Paco accidentally like ruins one of Joe's antique like books, he doesn't even get mad, which is like huge, because to him, he's like that's his everything, you know. He loves antique books, and then from the bookstore that he runs. So instead he's like, hey Paco, do you want to see how I repair books? And Paco's like, okay. So he takes Paco to the basement under the bookstore. So there's a basement under the bookstore that people aren't allowed to go into, and it's because there's a plexiglass kind of box, and it's built specifically to handle antique books, so that's at like the perfect volume. It's temperature controlled, everything like that. So he shows Paco how to fix antique books that have been damaged. So it's like a really sweet little moment with this kid, and then he uses Beck's phone after, and he texts Benji, right, her douche boyfriend. He's like, hey, I'm fine, or whatever. He's like looking through stuff, and then he pretends to be someone that's like in business that wants to hear out Benji's artisanal soda brand. He's like, hey, I think you have potential. Like, let's meet up and talk business. I love your artisanal soda. I think you're the next big thing. So Benji's like, ooh, he's like so excited, right? He's like, hell yeah, I'm gonna be an entrepreneur. So Benji is like, okay. And then Benji brings like a bunch of samples of his like little sodas, and he meets up with Joe. And where do they meet up? In the basement of the bookstore. So they're standing in the basement, and Benji's like, this place is kind of weird. And then Joe's like, well, yeah, but it's a good place to talk business. And then Benji's looking around, and bam! Joe bludgeons him in the face with a mallet. And you're like, whoa, jump scare! You're like, bam! And then Benji falls over, and you're like, huh? And then that's how episode 1 ends. We're finally past episode 1. Season 1's gonna be my longest recap because it's the one I remember the most. But yeah, episode 1 is over. How are you feeling? Is this interesting? How's my storytelling skills? Anything I should keep in mind? Oh, hold on. I have a hiccup. Oh, anyways. I'm worried about you. Don't worry. It's fine. But yeah, how are you feeling about Joe so far? Thoughts? I know you've been hanging around Astarion a lot, but assaulting people is not okay. Yeah, don't worry. I know. It's only okay if they're hurting others, right? Right? 10 out of 10 storytelling. Thank you. Hydrate. Thank you. Do you know? No. God, there's like, especially in Act 3 of like Baldur's Gate, there's some things that you just like can't do without like killing one side. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to do it. And then I just know Astarion is like geeked. He's like, yeah. Anyways, episode 1 is over. Oh, stretch, hydrate. Everyone get cozy. Get cozy. This is story time. Okay. What do you guys think about Joe? By the way, I love Beck. I'm just gonna put it out there. I do like her. Joe's kinda, I don't know. First episode, you're obviously like, this is going downhill. But still trying to understand him a little bit. You're like, why is he doing this? How come he's like, has this close, nurturing relationship with Paco? Like, you're trying to figure him out, right? She got that wrist. Gwen is gorgeous. She is. Beck meow. I love her. Okay. Episode 2. So Benji wakes up. He's alive. Yay! Benji is alive. Yay or nay? Anyways, Benji wakes up. He has this massive bloody wound on his head. he's like, ugh, he's out of it, you know? Because, I mean, bro got bludgeoned on the head. Of course he's out of it. He's like, ugh. And then he's being insufferable to Joe. He's like, can I have bear burgers or like sushi, please? He's like requesting food. He's like, please feed me some good stuff. Oh yeah, he's in the cage, by the way. The plexiglass cage that Joe uses to store the antique books. So he's locked in. And then he's like trying to ask for food through like this little opening. Because there's this little opening in the cage. That like it's like a little window kind of thing. You can put stuff in and then take it back out, stuff like that. So Benji's like, "Can you get me something good, like bear burger or sushi?" And then he's like, "Why are you doing this? I don't understand. I just wanted to make my soda brand." And then Joe's like super mad. Joe's like, "Why do you think I'm doing this? Like you're an awful person." And then he's like, "You left me no choice." Joe says this a lot, by the way. He's like, "I had no choice, like you did this." And then Benji's like, "Oh my god, are you doing this because of my girlfriend, Beck?" He's like, just because I'm god awful to her." And then he's like, "Are you seriously doing this because of my freaking stupid girlfriend? And you're gonna kill me because of this, like, stupid girl?" And then Joe's like getting mad because he's like, "How dare you insult my queen?" And then Benji's like, "Beck isn't worth it. Yeah, she's not worth doing all this for. She's a social climber. She's flirting with her professors to get ahead. Like she's a total WHORE." And then Joe is like, "You are, I'm gonna kill you. How dare you?" And then Benji is like, "Wait a second. Wait, I know you." And Joe's like, "Oh." And Benji's like, "I recognize you. You were there when Beck almost got hit by that subway train." Like he saw it, right? And then Joe was like, "Well, now I have to kill this guy," in his head. Because he's like, also Joe thinks this about himself, that he's like, "I'm such a nice person. Like, I'm the only decent guy in, like, New York." So he's like, I'm a rare breed of man. Like, men are like nasty, but I'm a nice guy." That's literally what he thinks. He's like, "I'm a nice guy." And he's like, "And because of that, I have no choice but to kill Benji." And he's like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it because I'm a nice person, but I'm gonna have to kill him." That's his thought process, right? So then, next day, Joe goes on his first date with Beck. And he's like, "Wee!" They're all going on the first date, right? And then Joe is, actually, Joe gets to the date super early. He goes to her house and watches her change through the window. He's like watching her get ready for the date. And he's like, "Oh, I can't wait." And then, after she's ready, she goes to the spot and then he meets her there. And then, they have good banter, you know, they always did. And Joe is falling so hard. He's feeling more protective over her. He's like a nice, concerned guy, right? So he follows Beck to her meetings with her advisor, Professor Leahy. And then he's like following her there to make sure she's okay. And during the meeting, Professor Leahy is like, "Beck, you are so special. You're an intelligent young girl. And I'm seriously considering making you my assistant or something." And maybe it wasn't assistant, but he was offering like he's like, "Oh, you're great, blah blah blah. Maybe I'll make you publish this thing for you or something, like get you connections. You know how it is, that kind of thing." Did she know it was a date? I think so. Yeah, I think so. And then, yeah, he's such a nice guy, so he just does these insane things. But then, Beck is like, really? And Professor Leahy's like, yeah. And then he like sneaks his hand on her thigh and he's like, I just need something little in return. And she's like, what the hell? You're like, what the hell? And then Beck is like, absolutely not, you freak. And then the teacher gets like super upset. He's like, fine, you suck at writing anyways. And he like takes it all back. And then Beck is like, IDGAF, you freak. And then she leaves and I'm like, yes, get out of there, what the hell? And then he fires her because she was his teacher assistant. And then he fires her because he's like, you didn't want to get it on with me. So then he fires her and Beck is like distraught, right? Rightfully so. And then she's like, ugh. And then Joe's like comforting her afterwards. He's like, you know, you really need to like grow some teeth and fight back at all these people in your life that are bullying you and stuff like that. And she's like, maybe. And then she invites him to her best friend's party. Now her best friend, her name is Peach. Yeah, it's Peach. It's Peach Salinger. And she is so pretty. Okay, it's her down here. God damn! She's a supermodel. Wow, wee! Yeah, Peach is gorgeous. So, Beck is like, you wanna come to my best friend Peach's party? And then, Joe's like, okay, I know about Peach because I cyber-stalked you. So in his monologue, he's like, right, so Peach is one of the like Salingers, and they're like a huge big name family, super rich. And then so he already doesn't like her because he's like, oh, she's one of those socialite people, right? And then the party is full of like total phonies, as you expected. And then Joe's wondering, he's like, was Benji right? Maybe Benji was right about Beck. You know, maybe she is a social climber. Maybe she isn't worth it. Maybe she's a phony too. That's what he's thinking. And then, because Beck stole like a very expensive dress to wear to the party so that she would fit in. And he's like thinking like, maybe she is one of those girls. Yeah, social killer vibes are real. And then, so Joe runs into someone at the party named Maddie. And then Maddie's like, oh my god, Joe! I haven't seen you forever! And then she's like, oh, ever since you and Candace broke up. So you're like, whoa, who's Candace, right? But then Joe's like, I don't want to talk about it. And Joe's like avoiding her like crazy. He's like, I don't want to talk about it, please, Dr. Get away. And then you're like, something, I guess he had a relationship and it ended badly kind of thing, right? He's like, oh, I don't want to talk to my ex's friend. And then, you're like, And then, Peach hates Joe. So Peach meets Joe at the party and she's like, Peach is immediately sus of Joe. Because Peach may be a socialite, she may be one of those Nepo babies, but Peach is smart, okay? Peach is intelligent. So Peach is sus of Joe right off the bat, and she's like, something's off. She feels something's off about this guy, and she's like, where did you... And she starts interrogating. She's like, where did you say you guys met again? And then Joe's like, oh, you. And Beck's like, oh, he was at this bookstore, and then like I met him. And then Peach is like, and she's like, and then he saved me, like I almost got run over by a train. And then Peach is like, oh, he just happened to be there. And Beck is like, yeah. And Peach is like really figuring things out, you know. And she's like, okay, yeah. And she's right, she's real, she's smart, and she's gorgeous. Peach. And bowing down to her. And then anyways, Joe gets drunk at the party. The next morning he wakes up, he has a gnarly hangover, and he's like, oh shoot, I forgot to feed my pet human. You know, Benji in the box. So he goes down to the basement, and then he sees Benji is suffering from withdrawal because Benji is a drug addict. And then he's like suffering from withdrawal, and he's ripping up all the books in the cage. And he's like, please, Joe, just kill me. He's like, just kill me already. Please, I can't do this anymore. And then, where's Bowser and his piano? Jack Black just shows up. And then, Benji offers Joe a deal. He's like, oh, please, as collateral, I'll admit to you the worst thing I've ever done. I'll admit to you the worst thing I've ever done in my whole life. And, you can let me go, and you'll have this, like, hung over me forever. And then Joe's like, he's considering it, right? He's like, And then, he's like, okay, what's your secret? So Benji tells him to look for a USB drive in his house. And on the USB drive is a video of Benji in college hazing a kid. And he hazes him to the point where the kid dies. But it was ruled as, like, he got away with it because his parents are rich and everything. And it was, like, ruled as, like, accidental. And they all got away with it. And Joe's like, oh. Joe's like, this is bad. Joe's like, this is really bad. But it's good collateral blackmail stuff, right? So he's considering it. He's like, okay, yeah, I'll free you. And then he agrees to free Benji. But then, upstairs, someone comes into the bookstore. You know how you open the door and there's like a bell? It's like, bing, 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 like someone came in. So, someone comes into a bookstore. And Joe's like, oh, he's like, BRB. So he goes upstairs. And it's Beck. And she's like, oh my god, Joe, it worked. You told me to, like, stand up to people, so I threatened to expose Professor Leahy for being a repeat sexual harasser. And I won. He agreed to assign me to a new advisor and everything, right? And then, she gives him a donut as, like, a, you know, like a thank you. And then he feels a wave of relief just wash off of him. What is he relieved about? That Beck isn't a phony. The relief washes off of him, and he's like, all my doubts about Beck have been erased. She's a wonderful, beautiful, gorgeous woman, and she is my love. Okay, so like all his doubts are washing away. He feels like euphoric. He's like, oh, this is wonderful. And then he goes back to the basement, and he's like, everything's different now. And then he goes back to the basement, and then he's like, I need to punish Benji for the way he's treated Beck, because Beck isn't some phony social climber like he says she is. Beck is wonderful, right? So he's talking to Benji, and then he gives Benji a latte, and Benji's like drinking it, and he's like, okay. And then Benji starts feeling weird, and he's like, what did you put in this latte? And he's like, this tastes weird. And then Joe's like, I don't know. Joe's like having the time of his life. He's like, I don't know. He's like, wanna take a guess? He's like, and then Benji's like, bro, what the hell? What'd you put in this? He's like freaking out. And then Joe's like, and Benji's like, did you put peanut oil in this? Because it tastes like peanut. And Benji's deathly allergic to peanuts, right? Deathly allergic. So Joe's like, and then Benji starts like getting swollen. He's like turning red, and then he's like, and he starts like writhing on the floor. He's like seizing. He's like, oh, Joe. And then Joe watches it all. He like watches it. He's like, he's like watching it all happen. And then episode 2 ends. And we have our first murder. How are we feeling? Yeah, basically. First? First? That's the end of episode 2. Anyways. On to... My thoughts are, Joe might not be a good guy. I love your retelling the show so off the rails. It is! I'm sick of this guy. Okay. Now, we're on episode 3. Okay, stuff starts picking up faster, so I'll just go zoom. I won't, actually, I'll probably take forever. Anyways. So, episode 3 starts off. Now, what's his problem right now? Wait, I need to cross out Benji on the chart. So Benji's gone. Dead. Okay? He's gone. He's not coming back. No more sodas. So, Benji's gone. And now the problem Joe has is, how do I get rid of the body? How can I get away with this, right? And let's remember, because Joe is a sensitive guy, you know? He's a sensitive guy, he's empathetic. He's an empath, and he's like, oh, I'm so sensitive. I'm an empath. I care about people too much. You know? That's what he thinks of himself. So he's like, because I'm so sensitive, I don't really have the stomach to dismember and dispose of human bodies. Oh, this is so gross, right? That's what he's thinking. And then Pigs will eat anything. Oh my god, Criminal Minds episode. Anyways, so then in his head, he's like, I'm not meant to do this. I'm such a good guy, you know? I'm not meant to cut up bodies. This is making me sick. He's like thinking all this about himself, and then he's like, okay, I have to get Benji out of the cage, but more importantly, Beck, I don't think she knows we're dating. So there's this guy dead in the cage, and Joe's like, oh, Beck, I don't think she thinks we're dating, because he overheard a conversation where he just happened to be there, you know, just happened to be there by coincidence, of course. She overheard a conversation where everyone was like, so who's Joe? Like, who's this guy? You dating him? Is he your friend? Is he something more? And Beck answers like, maybe. She's like, he's a maybe. And Joe heard this, and he's like, I'm a maybe? I'm a maybe? We're not dating, we're maybe dating? I did all of this for you, and we're maybe dating? So Joe is like distraught, right? And he's trying to figure out what to do, right? He's like, I literally killed for you. And then he's like trying to calm himself down, and he's like, no, it's all good, because we never said we were exclusive, so it's fine. And then he's like dismembering Benji's body, and then he's like hauling him to the woods to burn. He's like, get rid of this body. And then so and then yeah, he got over that fast. And then Beck has a graduate thing. I think it's like a writing seminar, a workshop. And she has to be critiqued by the whole class, which is more gruesome than disposing a body, you know, being critiqued by your whole class. Oh my god. And after that, Joe like helps her dig deep. You know, he's like, gotta put emotion into your writing. And he's like, let's dig deeper. He's like, what is your core memory? You know, he's trying to like get her to open up. And he's like, what is the moment that changed your life? And then Beck is like, well, I guess it's that my most sensitive topic is that my dad died of an overdose, you know? So she like opens up about that. I commit several murders just to avoid presentations of having my work critiqued. It's an art school moment. So it's a vulnerable moment. You know, she finally opens up. Hi, Waterfall. She finally opens up, and they're about to do it. They're about to do it. Joe is entering the base. They're about to do it because it's a vulnerable moment, and Beck opened up about her dad, and they're like really connecting on a level, right? And then they're interrupted. They're interrupted by Peach, okay? They're interrupted by Peach. And Peach is like, I'm having a flare-up of my rare bladder disease. And then, Beck is like, man. So Beck has to help her. And then because of this and because of all the distractions that she's had lately, she has nothing to submit to her critique, like her workshop critique, which is completely humiliating. She had nothing to submit, and she was supposed to present on the same day as the best student in her writing program. And, so everything's just going badly for Beck. She has nothing to submit. She's gonna be humiliated. She's going up against the smartest kid in class kind of thing. So Joe's like, well, I'm gonna make you feel better. I'm gonna cheer you up, okay? So, in this big romantic gesture, Joe takes Beck down to his sacred book restoration cage, which is Benji free now. He cleaned it up. So he takes her down to the murder cage. They have a moment. Right? And then after they have the moment together, Beck tells Peach. Beck is like, you know what, Peach? I think I'm gonna start taking Joe seriously. I'm gonna start taking him seriously, and I'm gonna seriously start considering him as a dating partner. Okay, so she tells this to Peach. And Peach is not happy. Peach is like, random kid was loud in real. Peach is like, oh, this is bad, but Peach doesn't like it because she doesn't like Joe. And then, so Peach is a smart girl, right? She notices that a copy of a book in her house is missing. It's called Ozma of Oz, and this book is missing. And, kind of implies that Joe stole it, right? He probably stole it because he's like, I think I should restore this book to a better quality or something. I don't know, he was drunk, so he takes the book. And then this is the first time you realize, or the first time you know he took the book, and then Peach also realizes the book is missing, and she's like, smart, but I feel like Peach is metagaming. And then Peach brings it up, right? Peach is like, you don't understand. There's something weird about this guy. My book is missing, blah blah blah, which means it was taken during the party, and I think Joe took it, And Beck is like, nah, he wouldn't do that. Beck is like, Joe would never steal a book. And then she's like, that's not like him. He's a good guy. So Peach is like, okay, whatever. And then, I forgot what happened next. I think they finally, did it together. Peach is always on point. It's insane. Yeah. Oh, hail, my queen. And then, this guy obsessed with books, he wouldn't take it. And then, Joe and Beck get to do it. But then, he's like a sensitive guy, right? So then he's like, oh, this is too much. And then he decides he doesn't want to do it with her. He's overwhelmed. He's sensitive. And then episode 4. Beck immediately tells all her friends what happened when they tried to do it. She tells all her friends that he only lasted 8 seconds. She tells everyone. Oh, it's like, what? bigger problems on her plate, okay? Bigger problems than humiliating Joe. Someone texts her. So, it's crazy! Someone texts her, and the text is from a contact called Captain, who turns out to be her dad. You know, the one she said allegedly died of an overdose. So her dad is actually alive, and he's enjoying a costumes festival and the weekends of his new family who like hate Beck, and then Beck also hates his new family back. So now you're like, whoa, wait a second. What's going on with Beck? She lied about her dad dying from an overdose, but her dad is alive. He just has a new family, right? So, obviously, Joe is reading all of her text messages, obviously, and he sees the group chat. So he sees like the whole group chat of Beck telling her friends about his performance in bed. And he's like, why? And then he also gets suspicious about who she's texting, like the captain guy, right? Who's her dad. So he assumes it's another guy, right? And then so he follows Beck up to the festival to spy on her. Because he's like, is she cheating on me? And then, meanwhile, okay, Peach, our girl Peach, pays a visit to the bookstore to pick up another copy of the book that Joe stole, called Ozma of Oz, right? She picks it back up. And she finds out from Joe's coworker, Ethan, that Joe might be going up to the place that Beck is also at. So Peach is like, so Peach calls Beck, right? And then Peach is like, hey, Beck, Joe is at the same place that you are at. And then Beck is like, what the? And she looks around and she spots Joe, right? Among the party of people dressed up in costumes. And then she's like, what's going on here? Why are you here? So Joe decides his best option is to come clean, but not really. So he admits he came to talk to her about their awkward moment in the bedroom. That's what he's saying he's here for. And then Beck also comes clean, and she's like, actually, my dad isn't dead. It's just that I found him after an overdose, and then he abandoned me after he overdosed. So that's why I'm, like, to me, he's like dead out of my life. And Joe's like, oh, he's like, okay, I get it. And then, you know, he's no stranger to double standards, right? So he's actually understanding about why Beck lied. And then they even go through a terrible, awful lunch with her dad's family. He sits through the lunch. And then Beck takes Joe's advice and starts writing about her pain. After half a season of avoiding her work, it turns out, you know, she does have stuff to write. So she writes about what happened to her. And then she's like, okay, this part was kind of weird, but she was so into writing, like, and all the creativity and energy that she gets aroused. So she's like, oh, I'm feeling it now. And then she shows up to Joe's place for a second try. And then she's like, let's try again. And he's like, oh, okay. He's like, of course. And then they do it. And this time it goes well, okay? This time it goes well. But it goes well mostly because he's distracted, you know? He's distracted because she showed up so suddenly that he forgot to hide all the items in his apartment that he took from her. So her stuff is just lying around, and he's trying really hard to make sure she doesn't notice. So they're like doing it, and he's like, oh God, but it works, okay? It works. She doesn't see anything. And he like blocks her view from things on her way out. So she leaves. And then the next morning, Beck checks the group chat again. This time 5-star review. 5 out of 5-star review on Joe and his bed activities, you know. She's like, oh, never mind guys. Last time he was probably just nervous. Like it was totally cool this time. And they're like, whoa, you know, yeah, Beck, go get him. Woo, whistle, whistle, you know. Now, episode 5. So, Joe and Beck are like completely in love now. They're like deep in this like honeymoon stage, you know. Beck's feeling inspired to write again, and Joe, you know, the nice guy that he is, he's like completely supportive and doting of her. Now the only problem on Joe's plate is love the word for it? Of course, this must be what it's like. The only problem on Joe's plate is her friends, because her friends are insufferable. He hates these phony socialite girls, right? And he hates what he hears every time he crashes their girls' nights because he goes to them and just hides. You know, just stop creeping on the girls' night then if you don't like it. But no, he goes anyways because he has to hear all the tea. So because he's you know, he's really good at manipulating, he starts to like he sees this growing rift, kind of like a problem between Peach and another one of their friends, Anika. So Joe convinces Anika to post an old college photo of Peach before her nose job. Right? Joe kind of manipulates her to do it because he's like, I forgot what he said, but he's like, he gives a bunch of reasons. He like kind of convinces Anika to post that photo of Peach before her nose job, and then she does. And it's a massive falling out. The whole friend group is like falling apart. There's a nuclear level because it's like, how could you show what my nose looked like before? I was like gorgeous. And then they have a massive falling out. So Joe's like, you know, he's like tapping his fingers together. He's like, and then Beck's recent work about her feelings and her father's fake death impressed her professor so much that her professor offered to introduce Beck to her agent, you know, the publishing agent. And to celebrate, Joe plans like a fantasy kind of like bachelor-esque date, but it's interrupted. His date is interrupted by a friend crisis, right? So Anika, she's being dragged online. She's being cancelled. Why? Why is she being cancelled? Because a video of her saying some really nasty racist stuff surfaces. Someone leaked a video of her being nasty. So Joe is instantly like, it's Peach. It's Peach. Hi, AJ. I'm so late, don't worry about it. I'll do a fast recap for you. Joe, main guy, is in love with Beck, blonde girl. He stalks her. He stalked her online. He watched her get it on of herself in her window. He is like grade A, grade S creep, okay? Stalks her, starts like turning her life around. He kidnaps her douche boyfriend in the basement, and then he keeps him captive there in like this little box. And then fast forward, Joe and Beck start like actually dating, and then Joe's like, this is going great. I don't need the douche guy anymore. So he bludgeons. No, he didn't bludgeon him. He bludgeoned him the first time, but the boyfriend lived. So then he poisons him with a peanut allergy style death. Okay, so he kills the guy, and then now we are on episode 5. So, where was I? Alright, manipulation. So, Anika's being cancelled online. And Joe is like, oh, Peach did this. Oh, by the way, Peach is Beck's best friend, who is very intelligent, so she's kind of already suspicious of him. Like, she's putting pieces together. She's like, well, you met here, and then you met again here. And then she noticed that a book was missing from her house because there was a party and Joe took the book home. So she noticed that, and it's like this whole thing. Anyways, so that's who Peach is. So Joe's like, oh my god, Peach is probably the one that leaked the video of Annika. And then, because, you know, he knows a fellow mastermind when he sees one, you know? He's like, game knows game. He's like, I see what you did, Peach, because I did that to you, right? So, Peach plans a private party at the bookstore for Beck to meet, like, this megastar publishing agent, Roger Stevens, right? And Beck is like, oh, I'm so in, because she needs that. She needs the opportunity. This huge publishing company, right? So she's fully committed to lying about like her dad being dead for like the book, right? And while that's happening, Joe goes down to the basement after stealing Peach's bag. He goes down to the basement to look through it. And he overheard Peach talking to the publishing agent and found out that Peach is actually trying to sabotage Beck's literary career. So for some reason, Beck's best friend Peach is trying to sabotage her career. And Joe is like, oh my god, Peach is a bad person. Well, she was always a bad person, but she's like a legit bad person, right? So Joe's like, I need to find out why. And then to do that, he needs the password to Peach's laptop, right? Which he tries to kind of get out of the weak link of the friend group, Annika, because he's like, Annika's the stupid friend. I can get anything out of her. So he's like trying to get the password from her. And then meanwhile, Peach obviously realizes her laptop is missing, right? And she's flipping out, and she immediately suspects Joe. She's like, it's Joe. She immediately suspects him. And then, he shifts the suspicion onto something else. Because it's usually Joe. He shifts the suspicion onto somebody else. Because Peach has been talking about how she's been like allegedly being stalked by someone, because she's like, I go to these places and I feel like someone's watching me and stuff like that, right? And then he's like, oh, maybe the person that's, you know, you think has been stalking you stole your laptop. And she's like, yeah, I guess that makes sense. Now here's the kicker. She is being stalked by Joe. It's him in his stupid little baseball cap stalking her around the place, but she thinks it's a different person. So Joe's like, oh, it's not me. It's that guy you say has been stalking you, which is him. So Peach is like, man, maybe. And then so Joe and Beck get into their first couple fight. The first big fight a couple has. And then, over Peach, right? Because Joe is like, you don't understand, Beck. Peach is trying to sabotage your career. This is a story that only serves the purpose of infuriating the viewer. Yeah, basically. I didn't get, like, super mad until season 4, so we'll get there. We'll get there someday. No, but they have a fight over Peach, and Joe's like, Peach is trying to sabotage your career, you don't understand. And Beck is like, you're unsupportive of me and you're jealous of my publishing agent. And then Annika, who, you know, weak link of the friend group, Joe is like, you gotta give me Peach's laptop password. And then Annika's like, okay. And then Annika helps him figure it out. And the password, get ready for cringe, the password to Peach's laptop is Beckalicious. It's Beck and Delicious combined. So with that, he figures out that Peach has a secret folder on her laptop, okay? And in the folder, it's just all photos of Beck. It's secret photos of Beck. Like pictures of Beck changing, pictures of her in the bathroom. It's just photos of Beck everywhere. So Joe is like, whoa. Joe's like, Peach is obsessed with Beck. Oh my goodness. And then, now Joe watching this, in his head he's like, what a creep. Oh my god, Peach is awful. This is disgusting. How could she hide this from her best friend? And the thing is, he doesn't see that he's doing the same thing. So he's like, oh my god, Peach is so creepy. I can't believe she's such a creep. But like, he's doing the same thing, but he doesn't like recognize that he is because he justifies all his actions to himself. Yeah. So, he's like, oh, no wonder Peach is so weird. Ugh. And then, yeah, so... what was it? Alright, Beck's new publishing agent that Peach introduced her to, Roger, his name is Roger. So he lures Beck into the back of his car to talk business, but then starts coming on to her and then tries to drug her. And Beck is like, what the hell? So she gets out of there, right? And then she confronts Peach. And she's like, why would you introduce me to this guy? He almost assaulted and drugged me. Are you doing this on purpose? Because remember, Joe talked to her about how Peach is trying to sabotage her career. And then, she's like, you did this on purpose. Like, you set up this meeting and then you're like trying to manipulate what's going on with my life and my career. And then they have a huge fight, right? Just as Joe wants it. Joe's like, right? Joe's like, yes! They have this huge fight. And then Beck comes running back into Joe's arms. Beck is like, you're right! You're right, Joe! Oh, I wish I listened to you! And then Joe's like, and he's like comforting her. The life of a girl who's just too hot for people to handle, for real. And then, but Peach, at this point, she's losing Beck, right? And Peach starts freaking out. She's like, I can't lose Beck. So she has another trick up her sleeve, okay? Peach has a trick up her sleeve. She overdoses. She takes too many pills, and then she calls Beck. She's like, Beck, I overdosed. I took too many pills because I feel awful. And then Beck is like, holy shit, right? Beck is like, what the hell? So then, obviously, Beck immediately goes running to Peach, right? Because, like, your friend is overdosing. Of course you're gonna go. So, Beck goes running, and then Joe knows that Peach did it on purpose, right? Because, once again, game recognizes game. So Joe knows that Peach overdosed on purpose, but he can't prove it to Beck, so, you know. But that moment was the last straw for Joe. He's like, you know what? Peach is insane! You insane! B-I-T-C-H! Right? Because he doesn't think he is insane. And he's like, Peach is freaking crazy! He's like, you're insane and you cannot be in Beck's life. So then, that's the last straw for him. He's like, there's only room for one of us. So, he follows Peach on her morning jog, you know. She's jogging through Central Park, doing hot girl stuff, you know. You know, hot girls jogging in the morning. And then, he gets close. He gets close. He gets closer. He gets closer. He gets closer. And BAM! He smashes her over the head of a huge-ass rock, and she falls. And then Joe is like, he suddenly starts feeling guilty out of nowhere. He's like, I don't know if this is right. And then he freaks out. And then he wrestles with his like conscience for several seconds. He's like, I don't know. I don't know if that was the right thing to do. And then he leaves, right? So, Joe goes back home to his apartment building and he finds Ron passed out in the hallway. Now Ron, if you forgot, is the little kid's stepdad, Paco's stepdad, who's like abusive, screams and everything. And what was it? Yeah, so he goes back to the apartment. Ron is passed out in the hallway. And he figures it out that Paco, the kid, Paco drugged Ron because he was trying to follow Joe's advice to like fight back against your abuser, right? And then Joe's like, oh, this is not what I meant, Paco. Joe's like, this is not what I meant. And then Joe's trying to revive Ron. And then Ron wakes up and then starts beating Joe savagely in the face. Like, bam, 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 bam. And then Joe's like bleeding on the floor. And then he gets a call from Beck. And then Beck is like, oh my god, you won't believe what just happened, Joe. Peach got attacked in Central Park. And then Joe's like, oh, did she now? And then Beck is like, yeah, she just woke up. And then Joe's like, what do you mean she woke up? And then Joe's like, huh? But he hides it, obviously. But Joe's like, oh my god, she's not dead. Right? She lives! So it's like, oh no! Oh no! And then, episode 6. So then, after both of their brutal attacks, Peach is pretty well rested, you know, she's recovered basically. But Joe looks awful, okay? He has black eyes. He has wounds on his face is still swollen because he got the living daylights beat out of him. Hi, Val. Hello. Yes, we're on episode 6. And then, so, gosh, okay. And then Beck is at Peach's place, right? Whereas Joe has been banished from Peach's place because Peach goes, I just can't handle his male energy right now. Like, I can't have that in my house right now. Like, like, yes! You go, girl! Yes, queen! And then Peach is like, I can't handle his male energy in my house. And then, she's trying to push Joe out. So then, Joe's being edged back out of Beck's life again, right? So this battle, this fight for Beck's attention is back on because Peach is still alive. So in a power move, major power move, Peach invites Beck. Oh my god, I was reading Beck while I was saying Peach. Who's Peach? Peach invites Beck to the Salinger family estate, which is her family estate. Okay, huge place. She invites Beck to her family estate in Connecticut. And Peach is like, Beck, you should stay with me while I recover. We can do hot girl stuff together, Beck. Come with me to my rich mansion, my huge estate. And Joe is like, no, Beck, don't go. Joe's like, don't go, Beck, don't go. And then Beck is like, but I have to. What kind of friend would I be if I abandoned Peach after she was viciously attacked in Central Park? And Joe's like, I mean, I guess that makes sense. And then, and funny enough, he's the one that attacked her. So it's like, ooh. Anyways, he's like, worry not, I have a solution. So he puts on his baseball cap, a disguise, and then he follows her to the estate. And then on the drive up to the estate, he gets into a car accident. So it messes up his even more like busted face because he was beat, right? So now his face is all busted up on the steering wheel. He just got like in a car accident, but he's like, I have to get to the estate. And then there's a local sheriff, and the sheriff is like, whoa, what are you doing here? And then Joe puts on his best Connecticut persona, and he's like, you know how it is, I'm up here visiting family, blah blah blah. I forgot what he said, but he like made something up. And then the sheriff is like, okay, alright, I'll let you off with a warning. And then, but he writes down Joe's license plate number because he's like, this guy's a little bit suspicious, right? So he writes down his license plate number. And you're like, ooh. And then anyways, so Joe ends up making it to the estate. He's like wobbling in it. He's wobbling and everything because he's all busted up. And then breaks into the estate. Peach and Beck are out at this time because they're like having a day together, girl bonding day. And then he's like, no worries. So he starts walking into the place. He's looking around at stuff, you know. He's like scouring the area. And then he goes into the bathroom. And then his concussion kicks in because he had a concussion when he got into the accident. But he kept going because he's like, I gotta get to the estate. So he passes out from his head injuries. And he starts hallucinating about Candace, his mysterious ex, right? And then he comes to again. He wakes up. But now that, as he wakes up, he realizes that Peach and Beck are back home. So he like hides and stuff. He hides somewhere, I forgot where, but he's like hiding in a room. And then at one point he notices that, yeah, we're in season 1. At one point he notices that Peach is spying on Beck taking a bath. And he is like, oh my god, you are such a creep. Like to Peach, he's like, oh, yeah, spying on her showering. Meanwhile, he spied on her straight up like yoinking herself, right? So he's like, oh, Peach is insane. How disgusting. And then he's spying on Peach, who's spying on Beck taking a bath. Anyways, yeah, he just took a step back. Anyways, yoinking herself, yes. And then Peach is like, I have so many gifts prepared for Beck, right? So the first gift, she's like, Beck, let's move to Paris together. Paris! She's like, let's move to Paris together. Yeah, it's still not done. God, I'm so frustrated. Anyways, Peach is like, Beck, move to Paris with me. And Beck is like, whoa, what? Like, you want me to move to Paris with you? Leave my life behind? You want me to leave my entire life behind, my career, just to move to another country with you? All the, like, hours and hours and hours away? Who do you think I am? You know, like, you think I'm Ryunosuke Naruhodo from the Great Ace Attorney? I would drop everything just to move to the other side of the world for you? Thank you for the hydrate. But yeah, Beck's like, I'm no Ryunosuke, you know? I'm no Ryunosuke. I would not do that. I would not hide in your suitcase for like 3 months just to be with you, right? If you want me to be Ryunosuke, you can at least be Kazuma, for real. So then Beck is like, I don't know about this. And then Peach is like, no. Okay, but I have an even more awesome plan. And Beck is like, okay, what's your next awesome plan after moving to Paris? And then, you better be Konami Date from the hit series AS Omnium Files if you want me to move across the ocean for you within months of meeting. Real. So Beck's like, okay, what's your present? And then Peach is like, come in, Raj! And you're like, what? And this guy comes in. And then Peach is like, let's all take drugs and have a threesome. And then Beck is like, what the hell? So Beck is like, what's going on? And Peach is like, let's get it on, Beck. And then, if you're not the 4th chairman of the Tojo clan on the Japanese Yakuza, don't talk to me, real. And then Joe is like, alright, I can't handle this anymore. So then he starts looking for a gun because Peach has a gun in her estate, right? So Joe's like, okay, I need to shoot everyone. So Joe's looking for a gun. But then Beck also like is like, oh my god, I need to get out of here. Because she's like, oh my god, Peach is insane, right? So she runs out and she's like, I can't do this. So she runs out of the room and she starts texting Joe. She's like, I don't want to go to Paris with Peach, and I don't want to have this threesome. And then Joe gets the text message, but where's he hiding? Under the bed! Under the bed that they were gonna yoink on! So he's under the bed while Peach and Raj are still hooking up on the bed because Beck left, but then Peach is like, well, I should still get it on, I guess. So then they're doing it, and then Joe's under the bed getting these texts from Beck, and he's like kicking his feet under the bed. He's so happy. He's like, hee. Beck doesn't like Peach anymore. And then, so, everyone, you know, and then, I think Joe sleeps there. I think. He, like, passes out or something. I forgot what, but he, like, sleeps there. And then the next morning, Beck and Peach have a huge fight with each other, right? And then Beck is like, I don't want to move to Paris with you. And also what you did last night was actually insane. And then Peach is like, you don't get it, Beck. And then Beck's like, you're right, I don't. So she goes home early. She leaves the estate. And then Joe's like, hell yeah, right? And then he's like trying to leave too. But then, oh my god, there's something I forgot. Oh yeah. Okay, so this happens. I forgot to mention, but it becomes important later. But while he's stalking Peach and Beck at the estate, he really had to pee. Like, he peed in a jar and he left it there. Anyways, so okay, back to the present time. Not the DNA evidence. Okay, Joe, he's a gamer. Back to the present time, right? Joe's trying to leave the estate, but then Peach catches him. And Peach sees that Joe is holding her gun. So Peach snatches it away from him. And she's like, what the hell? And then she sees that Joe is wearing Benji's watch. He took Benji's watch and he's wearing it because he doesn't think. And then, Peach is like, whoa, what? That's Benji's watch. Benji who's like missing. And then he's like, and then Joe like ends up spilling about how he stole her laptop and that he's going to threaten her. He's like, if anything happens to me, I'm going to make my like associate, quote unquote, he's like bluffing, I'm going to make my associate send out all the contents on your laptop, like all the stalker photos you took of Beck, if you do anything to me. And Peach is like, damn. And then Joe starts running for it. And then Peach, who still has the gun, pew pew pew, she shoots him in the thigh. He falls onto the lawn. And then I'm like, god damn. And wow, Peach looked so good doing it too. She was like wearing a sleeping robe. It was like black. She's wearing a robe. And then she has like her sleepwear on and it's all black and she looks beautiful. She's holding a gun. And then she's like, oh my god, I did it. I did it. And then Joe's like passed out, right? He's like on the lawn. So she starts walking over to him. And then she's like, is he dead? Like, what's going on? And then she gets closer. And then, bam! He gets up and he grabs the gun from her. And then she's like, oh my god! And then she starts wrestling with him. They're wrestling and fighting. And then she's trying to break free. And then, bam! Another gunshot. And then, she's dead. Peach has died! Ah! Murder number 2! And then he's like, I did it. Peach is gone. But now I have to get rid of her body. And now, sadly, we cross out Peach. Peach is gone. Oh, she's so pretty. She's evil. She's a bad person, but I support some of her wrongs. Not all of them, obviously. The weird, drug threesome thing was crazy. Anyways, she was just a girl in love. Gone in spirit but not in body. Real. So, he's like, okay, I have to get rid of Peach. So, he forges a suicide note for her, basically. And then, they support not just women's rights, but women's wrongs, too. Yeah. So, forges a suicide note for her. And he's like, now, Beck, I'm the only thing she has, right? So first month after Peach's funeral, Joe and Beck grow closer because Beck is grieving. And what better way to get closer to someone than by taking advantage of their vulnerability and grief, which is what he's been doing the whole time, right? So, they're like making breakfast together, they're playing games together that like only they play, and then they're having non-stop, they're yoinking, they're like, they're going at it, and then but then Joe's talking to his therapist, Dr. Nikki. He's like at therapy, and he's like saying like, I don't know what to do because our honeymoon period, like it didn't last. And the reason why it didn't last was because these little cracks start showing, right, in Joe's idealized version of Beck, right? Because he idolizes her. There's this idealized vision he has of her. And, yeah, so he's like, Beck got fired from her yoga job, and then I hired her to, like, work with me at the bookstore. But then I found out that Beck was seeing a therapist, and the therapist is actually Dr. Nikki also. It's his therapist. That's the reason why he started seeing the doctor. And Joe lies about his name and everything. And he's like, basically telling the whole story about like him and Beck, but then he replaced his name with Paul, and he's pretending like he's like dating a guy named Ronaldo. But he's just there to keep an eye on Dr. Nikki, basically. So, turns out Beck was terrible at her job at the bookstore, and he threw a surprise, like, themed birthday party for Beck, and it was a disaster because she wanted, like, a small birthday party, and then they had a huge fight, and then Joe was like, are you cheating on me? Because Beck is like texting this guy, Dr. Nikki, and then he's like, well, he confronts her, he's like, are you cheating on me? And then he's also like, this is reminding me of my ex, because my ex also like messed me up in the past, you know? And then Beck is like, hey, I can't take this right now. So she like storms out of her party, and then they manage to fix things with each other, but only for a little bit. Because Joe's paranoia and jealousy was like growing because Beck kept texting this guy, and then obviously his contact name was like hidden, which made it even more suspicious, right? So then it spirals out of control because Beck catches Joe following her to a therapy session. And then she's like, why are you following me to therapy? Are you that like suspicious of me? And then she breaks up with him. No! No! She breaks up with him, and he's like distraught. He's like, right? So, in the present time, Joe is talking to the therapist, right? And he's like contemplating killing this guy. He's like, this guy, you ruined my whole relationship. But then Joe needs like absolute proof that Beck is sleeping with the therapist, so he uses one of his go-to moves. He breaks into the therapist's laptop and listens to a recording of one of the sessions. And then he concludes that he was wrong about the affair. He's like, okay, there's no cheating, and maybe I'm just not what Beck needs right now, you know? He's finally having a normal thought process. He's like, oh, maybe I'm just not the guy. Maybe I'm just not the guy right now. And then, because he believes in his, like, little twisted sense of love, he's like, okay, I'm gonna let her go. And then he smashes the phone that he stole from her in, like, episode 1 or something. And, finally, he like cuts off his access to her privacy. was just like, wow, no way! No way! No way! He did that, right? And then episode 3. So after the breakup, this is 3 months after, Joe is dating someone else named Karen. Okay, they're dating. And then Joe is like not into her at all. She's like, oh, this woman is boring. Boo! But she's like, they're still dating. And then he still keeps tabs on Beck, but like through legal methods now, you know. So he knows that she has like a new book deal after writing an essay about Peach's death and everything. And then Joe, who's still posing as his made-up character Paul, has kept up sessions with the therapist, telling him about the domestic bliss he's experiencing with this new person he's dating. And he's surprised that like he's not missing his ex as much, right? And then, but he runs into Beck out in the wild at a food truck, while out at the same time with his new girlfriend Karen. And all the feelings come flooding back. And he's like, oh, I'm not over her. And then they start like texting, flirting like crazy. And then turns out Beck is also like still seeing their therapist, but she like she still has feelings for Joe, basically. Yes, Errol, did you have a question? What was I saying? Oh yeah. And then I wanted to show off a new thing I got. Oh yeah, sure. And then oh my gosh. Are those new emotes? Aw. The art looks so good. The smoke one. I'm out of here. me when anything happened, I was like, I'm out of here. But then I wasn't, because I was too nosy. I'm like, I have to know how this ends. But then yeah, so they still have feelings for each other, and then they can't resist each other, right? And then Joe is like, I need to be needed by someone. Like, that's his whole thing. He needs to be needed by someone always. And then Beck is someone who needs a lot, right? So then Karen is way too like sane and well-adjusted for any of them. Oh my god, hold on, I need to blow my nose. Ugh. Oh, I'm still sick. This sucks. Anyways, so Beck starts crying and she's like, I admit it, I'm jealous of your girlfriend and I'm sorry I broke up with you. And then Joe's like, oh my god. And then he breaks up with Karen immediately. And this is after Karen like literally saved Paco's mom's life. Paco the kid, because his mom was like dying, and then Karen saved his mom, and then right after that Joe's like, we should break up. Joe's like, we should break up. And then Karen is like, okay. Karen's like super heartbroken, right? But then all of us are like, yes, Karen, just leave, because who knows what will happen if you stay dating him. And so Karen leaves, and she takes the breakup like an adult, and then she leaves, and she warns Beck, I guess. She's like, hey, Beck, I know that he broke up with me because he wants to get back together with you, and I just need to tell you that he's kind of weird, and he lies about things a lot. And then Beck is like, okay. And then Karen leaves, and Joe sprints to Beck's place. He's like running, he's like, yes. And then they like restart their relationship and everything, and she's like, yes, we're back together. Woo! And then episode 9. One night, they're sleeping together, and Jill screams out a name. He says, Candace. So Beck is like, who? Right? So Beck starts prying into Jill's history and his like past with like Candace, who allegedly like went to Italy and then just like cut off contact. So Jill's like telling his therapist about like all his nightmares. And then he thinks back on his relationship with Candace. And he's like, oh, it was all great, but then I started suspecting that she was cheating on me. And it turned out I was right, so I went to confront the guy that she was cheating on me with. His name's Elijah, and then he doesn't tell the therapist this part, but basically you see through his flashback what happened was he went to confront Elijah, and then in like this impulsive rage, he pushes him off a rooftop. So that was his first real kill. And then after a Google deep dive, Beck like sees some red flags. She's like, what the? Like Candace is completely missing. Like what's going on? So Jill tells her that Candace like fled after cheating on him. I forgot what else he says. But yeah, he says like, oh, Candace ran away. And then Beck is like, okay. And she's like, yeah, that makes sense. I'm sorry I blamed you. Like even though you're the one that got cheated on. And Beck starts trusting him more because he like opened up. And then Jill takes Beck to see Mr. Mooney, who is like the previous owner of the bookstore and the guy that raised Joe. But then you also find out that Joe is abused, okay? This guy that raised him also abused him. So now a lot of things are making sense. It's like, oh, I see. And then basically he's like, well, this is how much you mean to me now. Like, I'm telling you all of this. And then Beck gets another text message from like the same guy that she was texting before they broke up, which is the therapist. And it triggers Joe because he's like, oh my god, is she still cheating on me? And then he ends up stealing his therapist's phone. And then he finds out that he was right. They're like cheating with each other. Even though Beck like broke up with me because I accused her of doing it. And then he's like going crazy. He's devastated. So he like wrenches the truth out of Beck. He's like, what is this? And then oh, my OBS died. Anyways, it's back. It's back. Anyways, my OBS died for a second. Yeah, and then Beck admits that she was lying, and then she's like, but I love you. I love you more than I've loved anyone else. I just got confused because I didn't know what to do with like the way I love you. I don't know how it works. It's confusing. And then Joe's like, oh my god. It like goes straight to his heart. He's like, aww. And then they make up, and then she's like completely forgiven. And the next morning, Joe goes to pick up breakfast, right, for both of them. And Paco is like walking by, and Beck is like, hi Paco. She's like waving to him, and Paco's like, hi. And they're like chatting and stuff. And then during the conversation, Paco makes like this offhand comment about how Joe likes hiding things in the ceiling above his toilet. And Beck is like, what? Paco doesn't know what he just said because he's like a kid, right? He just made some offhand comment about, he's like, oh yeah, Joe likes hiding things there. And Beck is like, hiding things? What? So now the viewer, we're like, oh shit, right? So then Beck is like trying to forget about it, but then she keeps thinking about it. She's like, I have enough doubts about Joe though. And then she finds So she goes to the ceiling above the toilet. She like pushes it open a little bit and she finds a box. And you're like, oh shit! And then she opens the box, and inside the box, full evidence. Her stolen phone that's like now broken, her diary, tampons. She finds Benji and Peach's phones, and a box full of teeth. And I don't remember whose teeth it was, but she finds all of this, right? And you're like, oh my god, I think it's Benji's teeth actually. Maybe he took it so that it was harder to identify the body. But anyways. So she finds this entire box of straight up evidence, and she's like, oh my god, like, can you imagine the dread? Jesus Christ. Anyways, so Jill walks back into the apartment, and while she's trying to hide the box, because she's like trying to hide it really fast, she accidentally cuts her finger while she's pushing the box back. And then he sees the blood, right? And he sees the blood like in the bathroom or something. So he immediately figures out, he's like, oh, she looked through my stuff, so she knows everything now. And he's like, well, I didn't want to do this to you. And then Becca's like begging him. Becca's like, please, like, I'm so sorry. Like, I promise I won't tell anyone. Please just let me go. Like, she's like begging for her life now. She's like, please just let me go. Like, oh, why would you do this? You're such a sicko. Like, you freak. I can't believe this. Like, oh, my ex and then my best friend. You killed both of them. And she's like begging for her life. And then he's like, oh, I didn't want to have to do this to you because I love you so much. And he's like feeling pity for himself, right? He's like, oh, I can't believe this is happening to me. He's like really upset for himself. And then the episode ends. Now, episode 10. We are on the final episode of season 1. Don't worry. Only season 2 is like kind of long too. The other 3 I completely forgot. Anyways, so, and then last episode, season 1. Are we surprised? Beck is in the cage. Beck is in the box. She's been put in the box. No! Hold on, let me cross my legs. I'm getting comfortable. And then, so she's locked in a cage, and Joe's like, okay, I'll answer any questions you have. And, she's like, okay, can you tell me why you freaking killed Benji and why you have my underwear and why you killed Peach? And then he makes up this lie. I forgot what the lie was, but like, oh, my OBS just died again. No! Okay, it's back, it's back, it's back. OBS is giving up on me. What the hell? Anyways, so then he makes up like these random excuses for why he killed Benji and Peach and why he has her underwear. And it like made sense in his head because he thought it made sense, and he's like, oh, yeah, she'll totally believe this. But then he tells her, and then Becca's like, no! Becca's like, you're insane. So then Joe's like, man. And then Beck eventually falls asleep out of exhaustion. And while she's asleep, he sets up like this perfect little writing studio around her. You know, there's books, there's snacks, and there's a cute little desk. And then, OBS is bored. OBS is like, make it stop. So he like makes the place all cozy and comfortable for her. And then she's like, oh, okay. Anyways, Beck is not into it, right? She wakes up and she's like, sees this little writing thing around her, and she's like not into it. She doesn't appreciate what he's done, basically. That's how he sees it. So she tries to appeal to the side of Joe that's like in love with her still, but Joe doesn't budge, and she's like, oh, I'm trapped, basically. And then Joe's like, well, you know, you could just like keep writing and stuff on your hair. It's not that bad. And Beck is like, what the hell? Anyways, So Joe meets up with the remainder of Beck's friend group, which is Amika and Lynn. And you're doing this, you're listening to this while doing homework, so real. And what was it? He learns that Peach's family hired a private investigator to like dig into her death, basically, because they're like, there's no way Peach committed suicide. And then the PI pays Joe a visit because he found the jar in Peach's house that Joe peed in while hiding there. So he's like visiting Joe. And I forgot how it goes. It doesn't go that bad, you know. I forgot what they talked about, but Joe like kind of gets away with it. Hold on, I'm gonna blow my nose again. Okay, that did nothing. Anyways, so Beck continues to try and like charm her way out of the cage. She's like, Joe, I don't want you to go to jail because Paco has no one else, you know? His mom's in a hospital and Ron is like even more abusive than before. And then Beck is like, here, I wrote an entire account of my affair with our therapist, Dr. Nikki. So it incriminates him instead of you, Joe. Like, let me out, you know? We can frame our therapist. It's just like kind of insane. It's like, whoa. whoa. But Beck is like, if you let me out of here, like I have written down entirely that this was all our therapist. And then Joe's like, That's not that bad. Not that bad. And then she like rizzes him up through the cage so effectively that Jill unlocks the cage and then they kiss. They kiss, and while they're kissing, she stabs him with part of the typewriter, very sharp part, and then she escapes and locks him inside his own cage. And then she runs up the stairs. She's like on her way out. She's running up the stairs, but the basement door is locked. And then she's like, oh my god, it's locked. She's like screaming, right? She's screaming. She's hoping someone upstairs will hear her in the bookstore, but like nobody is in the bookstore really. And then she's like screaming. She's like, help, help, help. And it turns out Paco is there, the kid. But Paco is like super loyal to Joe. Because, you know, Joe's like the guy that raised him basically. And when he had no one, his family like abandoned him basically. They abused him. Joe gives him food. Like Joe talks to him. He's his friend. And there's one thing that Joe told him like in the beginning of the show, which is like never let anyone else down here. Like never let anyone else in the basement kind of thing. Because he's like, this is my special place, you know, Paco. Like I can't have people be coming in here. So then Paco remembers this while he's hearing someone like yelling from the basement. And Paco remembers Joe told him to never open the door without him. So Paco is like, I'm gonna leave. So Paco leaves the bookstore. Yeah, it's like a Cosimo situation. So Paco leaves the bookstore and Beck is still yelling. And it turns out Joe escaped the cage because he had a hidden spare key inside. You know, he's the one that knows the cage. And then we fade to black. 4 months later, Beck's book is published. Her books are on sale in the bookstore. And it's a bestseller, you know, everyone's talking about it. But it turns out it's a biography. It's an autobiography in memoriam. Because she's dead! 4 months later, she died that night, guys. And Joe got her manuscript published. It's a bestseller, and that book incriminates the Dr. Nikki for everything, right? So Joe is free and clear, and he's still working at the bookstore, you know. He got away with it, all of it. Dr. Nikki, on the other hand, He's in jail, right? Hi, Hitsu! You're reading burgers. So he's still working in the bookstore. And then a girl walks in. And he's like, whoa! Because he's like, whoa, this girl! Woo! He's like about to do the same thing over again, right? But then he recognizes her. It's Candace! And that's the end of season 1. How do we feel? I'm gonna drink water. My throat's dry. Ah. Ah. Man. Okay. That's good enough. 1 minute rest. Comparing the recap of live footage. Are you? But yeah. Hope my storytelling is awesome, guys. We're on okay, we're on to the next season. No, I'm not. Okay, liar. Entertaining as always. Thank you! Oh, I'm so sniffly. Anyways. Season 2 has one of my favorite characters, actually. Oh, by the way, Candace is this girl here. I just realized I never pointed that out. This is Candace. So Candace walks into a bookstore and that's how season 1 ends. Right? Okay, now... Oh, there's 4 seasons. Let's get rid of the other people. How do I get rid of them? Oh my god. Okay. You know what? I'm just gonna replace them. I'm gonna put the photos over them. Okay, so. Oh wait, I forgot to cross her out. Beck is dead too. Now, season 2, okay? It starts off, and we meet this guy named Will. His name is Will Bettelheim, except Will looks exactly like Joe, because he is Joe. So what we find out is that Joe left season 2 actions for season 1 crazy. I'm sorry! Season 1's the one I remember the most. No, this is gonna take forever. Do I have to move it to tomorrow? It's okay, let's see. And then, the older sister. Yeah, Delilah, I loved her. Okay, so Will looks like Joe, because Will is Joe. Basically, after Candace walked into the bookstore, she's like, I read Beck's book, and I know what you're up to. I know what you've done. You're up to your old tricks again. I don't want to kill you or get you arrested. I want to ruin your, whole life, right? So Joe is like, oh my god. So Joe gets so freaked out that he relocates to Los Angeles. LA, because that's the city that he hates more than anything. He hates LA, which means nobody would look for him there. So Joe moves in to a new apartment in Hollywood. And he uses a new name, so now he's Will, okay? His name's Will now. I'm gonna put that here. His name's Will. Oh, let's do it in black. Will, Baldur's Gate! His name is Will, but he's still Joe, basically. So this is him. Just in case anyone gets confused when I say Will, Eldritch Blast. Okay. Moves to LA, He moves into a new apartment in Hollywood, uses a new name. He's like, I'm a new man. He's like, I won't do what I did in the past anymore. But he's still looking at women through their windows. No, I'm kidding. Imagine. And so he's like, I'm a new man now. So, one of his neighbors is a 15-year-old. And her name is Ellie. And she's played by Jenna Ortega! Ah! I love Jenna. This was actually the first thing I watched Jenna in. So, Ellie is played by Jenna. And I'm just gonna put her on top of Paco because you're going to notice a pattern here. But she is basically Paco of season 2. Cause you know how it is. He saves the children. So this is Ellie. Yeah, that's Jenna. I almost wrote Jenna. This is Ellie. So Ellie is his neighbor. She's 15 years old, and he realizes she's kind of neglected. You know, she's like acting out, stuff like that. But then he's like, no, I'm not gonna befriend. I'm not gonna befriend her because I cannot have myself like feel bad for another kid, right? Oh, hold on. We're on 2 now. Put this over to 1. You can barely see it, but he's like, no, I'm not gonna adopt this kid. But you know, Ellie is like just too. She's smart. She's a smart girl. She's really smart. She's smart and she's like street smart and everything, and then she's like neglected, and he's like, I'm trying not to like be a protector role towards this kid, but I can't help it. You know, it's what he does. He wants to protect kids. But he's like, I can't do it though because that's what Joe would do, and I'm not Joe. I'm Will. I'm a new guy, right? So he gets a new job at this food marketplace called Anavrin. Yeah, Anavrin. Very LA. If you say Anavrin backwards, it's Nirvana, you know. Anyways, it's like a very like goody, like organic food market thing. So he gets a job there, and then his new boss, Calvin, is cool as heck. He's like, I kind of love this job, you know? Everyone's super chill. There's like nothing bad really going on, really. And then a girl walks in. That's right. A girl walks in. Oh my goodness. There's a new girl. And her name is Nirvana, like the hit game. Her name is Love. It's actually Love. Her name is Love Quinn. And I love her. I genuinely do like her. She's a really great character. Let me put her photo here. What the? It's not copy and pasting. Okay. So that's Love. Hi, Love. We're all like, ooh, Love. So, this is Love. She walks in, and he starts monologuing. He's like, oh my goodness. He's like, oh, look at you. He's like, you're so good at picking out vegetables. He's like monologuing. He's like, ooh. It's like, oh, you're beautiful. You look smart. You're like well dressed. She basically the same thoughts that he had about Beck. You know, it's like, oh, she's a well-educated woman. There's something so special about her. He can't keep his eyes off of her. Okay, guys, season 2 is crazy. Dang, you thought season 1 was crazy? Season 2 is. Anyways, she's picking out veggies and like fruits, and he's like, ooh, he like loves her. He's like, oh, I can't stop thinking about her even though I just saw her. And then turns out he's like, no, I can't do this. I can't be monologuing and fall in love with another girl. But then bad for him, turns out Love works at Anaverin also because her parents own the place. So she works there as a chef because she's really good at cooking. And Joe's like, oh, I had to be careful. I had to stay away from her. Oh, I'm so scared that Candace will find me again. So I had to really like keep it to myself. I had to be a different guy. And then he goes back home, and it turns out he finds out that Ellie, his neighbor, the kid, was filming him. So he's like freaked out because, you know, he's like hiding from Candace. I forgot to write her name. Ooh. So he's like, what the hell? So he knocks the phone out of Ellie's hand, and Ellie's like, hey, what are you doing? But it turns out it was just Ellie making like a movie for her school. You know, one of those school films. And then he's like, oh, I'm sorry. So he does damage control. He buys her a new phone, which helps them bond. And then Joe gives her like book recommendations, and Ellie gives him movie recommendations. And then she helps him create like social media and stuff like that. And why does he want social media even though he hates it? So that he can create a connection with Love, you know? So he can like start getting connected with her, stalk her, maybe even, and to like create this new identity for himself as Will. So Love accepts his Facebook friend request, and to his horror, her relationship status is married. So he's like, no! He's like, no! She's married! And then, however, she drops by his apartment because she was like, oh, I noticed that you had like you had sunburn, because he got sunburn. He's not used to LA, you know. So she's like, here, I have like this organic aloe that you can like rub on and stuff. And then he's like, oh my goodness. He's like, I've never met a woman so open to me before. And he's like, okay. And then she starts introducing him to like LA writers and stuff like that. And then she's like trying to like get rid of his anti-West Coast bias because he hates the West Coast. She shows him like a bunch of really good foods and stuff like that. And then he's like, oh, these are okay. Like, they're really good, but they're like not amazing. So she's like, okay, I'll make you something amazing. So she starts cooking. She cooks him a very delicious, beautiful Californian dinner, and he's like, whoa, this is so good. She's like such a good cook. He's like, wow, this is amazing. And then they start chatting and stuff. And he's like trying to get information. So he's like, I saw that you're married on Facebook. Is this true? And she's like opening up, basically. Despite her saying that she's married on Facebook, her husband is dead. And she's experienced like grief and loss, which attracts Joe to her even more. Because Joe's like, oh, I love broken women. And then, yeah. So, well, that's how they meet each other. And then, it turns out that, he's like, oh, I can't believe I met her. And, it turns out that, like, this whole time, nothing that has been going on was by coincidence. So we find out that it's because he got a job at Anaverin, because he knows that love worked there, because he saw him one time basically. So like your mental image just like shatters and falls apart because you thought he was just working there and then saw her, right? No, he saw her before. He's just like in denial of himself. So he saw her before and he knows she works there. That's why he got a job there. And then he also moved into an apartment closer to where she is too. So it's like this whole time he's still up to his old ways, and we're like, that's Joe, you know, that's the guy we know. And then it turns out that there is actually a Will, but Will is locked up in his new little plexiglass cage. Like, no! And then, so Will is a real guy, he just stole his identity. Okay. Episode 2. So it's like a week flashback, a week before the first episode. And you find out that the real Will was a guy on Craigslist who like sells fake IDs and stuff like that. So Joe needed like a new name and documents, right? So he was like, get me one. And then they met up to like exchange stuff, but then I forgot what happened, but he decides that instead of like buying a new identity, he'll just take Will's identity. So he bashes Will in the back of the head with a concrete block, and then he builds a cage around him in a storage unit. And then all things considered though, Will is like, the real Will is surprisingly like super chill of being in the cage. He's like pretty accepting of it. He's like, oh, okay. And he's like, I guess this is fine, because like even if I'm caught, I'll be imprisoned for like identity theft and stuff. And then Joe is like, wow, why are you so okay with being held prisoner and kidnapped? Like, what's going on? And then, he's like, I don't know, it's not that bad here. You give me food and stuff. This guy Will's like super chill. And then, it turns out though that Will is so chill with being held captive. It's because he owes like $50,000 to like loan sharks. And that's why he's fine with like being hidden. But the problem is, now Joe is Will, right? He stole his identity. So these like loan sharks come after Joe, and they're like, where's the 50 grand? And Joe's like, what are you talking about? And then they're like, where is it? He's like, what? And then they're like, you owe us, Will. And he's like, Will? Hello? And then they cut off his pinky finger because he couldn't pay. So he's like, what the hell? And then he's like, this is freaking insane. And then he like carries his little pinky finger in like an ice bucket so that he can reattach it or something. And then Will is still in the cage, and then Joe is like, you didn't tell me you were in debt, what the hell, blah 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 blah. And Joe's like, oh, why would you do this? You should have told me you were in debt. And Will's like, I don't know. So then Will tells him that, well, there is some guy that like owes me money. Maybe you can get it from him and then pay them off. So then he's supposed to do that. And then meanwhile, Love is like also really feeling Joe. She's like kind of into him. So she invites him to meet her friends and everything. And he's like, sure. But instead of like enjoying lunch with them, he spies on them from the outside of the restaurant and then stalks them on Instagram. Which is like, you know, typical Joe behavior. And then Joe's like, Lucy and Gabe and Melanie, who are her friends, they're all stereotypical LA hippie dippies, posers. But then he listens in on their conversation, and he realizes that like, hey, these friends are genuinely caring, like they genuinely care about Love. And it's nothing like Beck's friend group, who is like, everyone was just weirdo. And then he misses lunch basically, because he was busy spying on them. And then later, Love is like, hey, why did you miss out on brunch? I invited you and everything. And then he's like, oh, I don't know. then while he's looking at Love, he like hallucinates seeing Beck. And he's like, oh, he's like, I'm in love with her. I'm in love with Love, but I'm afraid I'll hurt you like I did to Beck. So then he's like, oh. And then the next day he goes to like this pool party in the valley to track down the guy that owes Will 50 grand. But then he runs into his neighbor Delilah. Now Delilah is Ellie's older sister. So we're gonna put her here. She's lovely. She's a lovely girl. So this is Delilah. She's Ellie's sister. Yeah, Delilah's awesome. So this is Delilah. Put her next to Ellie. So he runs into Delilah, and Delilah tries to avoid this guy, this comedian. So I'm gonna put her name here, Delilah. Delilah's trying to avoid this guy at the party, and you're like, who is she trying to avoid? And basically, she was trying to avoid this comedian at the party. He's like a celebrity. His name's Henderson, but they call him Hendy. She's trying to avoid him because it turns out, she opens up to Joe later, that Henderson drugged her and R-worded her when she was 17 years old. So Joe is like, whoa. And Joe's like, okay, I'm gonna keep that in mind. And then, but he has other problems to worry about right now, right? So he ends up luring the loan shark back into the basement, stabs him, and then, you know, he dismembers the loan shark in Anna Vryn's kitchen. The kitchen that Love cooks in. He dismembers this guy in the kitchen. Oh yeah, the comedian was a super creep in real life too. It turns out, ironically. So yeah. Kills the loan shark, dismembers him in Love's kitchen, gets rid of him. And then episode 3, he's like, oh, Love and I, we can stay friends, right? We can stay friends. And he's talking to Will, who's like the real Will, who's in the cage. He's like telling Will about like Love and everything. And then even Will doesn't believe him. Will's like, I don't know. I don't think you can. And Will's become his like best confidant. His only friend who's like locked up in a cage because he's the only one he can talk to. And then Will's like, I don't know if you can just stay friends with her, man. It sounds like you two are getting it on. And then Jill's like, no, I'm gonna be different. I'm gonna be different. We're just gonna be friends. And then Will's like, alright. Now, Love has a twin brother, okay? And he's important, so we need to put him on the chart. Now, Love's brother also has a weird name. Why no picture real Will? I'll find one. So this is Love's brother. Other twins, by the way. I don't know if I said that. And his name is 40, like the number. So they all have weird names. And Love and 40, you can tell their parents are like really, you know, name them random things. I think it's like a tennis reference or something. It's like Love and 40 are tennis phrases, but that's what they did. And Will, let me see if I can find Will. Okay, this is Will. He's just chilling. I'm gonna put him under Joe. Tennis score, yeah, so Love 40. That's why their parents named them that, because they're like LA parents who love tennis. Anyways. What was it? Right, so Jill like kind of hates her brother 40, because 40 is very self-absorbed, like LA stereotype. He's like, I want to be a film director. I want to be famous. 40 is like very spoiled. He's a bit immature. Love is always looking after him, stuff like that. And so yeah, Joe hates this guy, but he's like, I have to like you because you're my love's brother, so I have to stay close to you. And then Joe even goes with 40 to one of Hendy's comedy shows. So Henderson, a comedian, and he spots Ellie there, the girl. And he's like, whoa, wait a second. Because he remembers that Delilah was like drugged and assaulted by Henderson when she was 17. And then, but Ellie probably doesn't know, right? So Joe's like, whoa, 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 whoa. So Joe starts getting protective. He's like, what's Ellie doing here, right? But so it's like Ellie doesn't want to be protected because she's a teenager, you know? She's like, I don't need anyone. But she doesn't get a choice because actually Joe already installed like spyware on her phone to keep an eye on her. So Joe's like, whatever. So Joe asks Will in the cage. He's like, hey Will, how do I hack this guy Henderson? How do I hack him, right? Like any text. Will, real. So he's like, how do I hack Henderson? And then Will's like, I got you. So Will like tells him and stuff. But he's like, but you can't really do that. It's a bit too complicated. So then Joe's like, oh, okay, whatever. So Joe braves an improv show, and then he talks his way into a party at Henderson's house. And 40 invites himself with Joe so that he can pitch his idea for a psychosexual thriller film to Hendy. And Joe snoops around Hendy's bedroom. He finds like a laptop, and then so they're at a party, and then the party, right? Joe is like in the bedroom looking through Henderson's laptop. Meanwhile, 40 is like pitching his movie idea to this director, agent, and the agent is like, your movie kind of freaking sucks. He's like, this movie's bad. And then 40 is like, because he's like immature. He can't really stand rejection. He can't stand people telling him his ideas are bad. So the guy's like, your ideas suck. So 40's like, he's like dying. He's like, no. And then he's so upset that like he has this drug-fueled freak out because they're like doing drugs at a party. So he's freaking out. And then Henderson's like, hey man, it's okay. Like, and then 40's like, no. He's like freaking out. And then he's like, they're like talking, and Henderson's trying to make him feel better, right? And Joe is at the party, and he sees Henderson like cheering 40 up, and he's like, huh, he's not that bad of a guy. Like, he genuinely cares about people. And then he also overhears Henderson talking about Ellie. Turns out Ellie is like trying to get into the film industry, so Henderson's like, yeah, I'm just trying to get her connections, you know, maybe an internship. I'm trying to help her out. And he's like, I think she's really talented. He says like a bunch of sweet things about Ellie that are like not creepy at all. So Joe is like, wait, maybe Henderson is like a sweet guy. Maybe he's a nice guy. Despite Delilah straight up telling him that like Henderson R-worded her at age 17, Joe's like, oh, maybe he's not that bad. So Joe calls Love because Joe's like, hey Love, your brother 40 is like freaking out. He got rejected. He's having a meltdown, blah blah blah. And Love is like, oh man, sorry. Okay, I'm gonna go get him. So you can kind of tell she's been like looking after her brother. And during this show of vulnerability, cause she showed vulnerability, you know, and he's into that. He forgets about like the, oh, we're just gonna be friends thing. And then they have passionate yoinking in bed. It's like super passionate. They're super into each other. They go at it. And then he's like, oh my gosh, he's so kinky. Like he's like into it too. And then he's like, oh. And then they go at it. And then he's like, you know what? Forget being friends. I wanna date this woman. And then yeah, so there's a beautiful montage of him blissfully in love with her. And then, you know, she's not like the other girls. And then, next episode, they're like super stupidly in love. They're like, and then Joe wins over Love's friends and everything. And everyone's like, ooh. And the only thing that's like ruining the relationship is 40. Because 40 always needs love. Like, he's very needy. He can't take care of himself. And Love is the kind of like sister who'll like drop everything to like rescue her brother, like caretaker kind of thing. And then eventually Joe offers to help 40 write his screenplay because he sees it as a chance to get closer to Love if he like does something nice for 40, right? So 40's like, yay! And then Joe has his own human to take care of, which is Will. And then Will's like pretty useful actually to him. So 40 tells Joe about how Henderson, the comedian, has this like creepy secret room in his house, and Will helps him find it basically. And Joe breaks in, and sure enough, he finds the secret room, and in that room, and it's bad. In that room are photos of like passed out women and girls that like Henderson has drugged throughout the years, including Delilah. So Joe is like, oh, forget him being a good guy. He's like legit bad. He's like, obviously. So Joe takes all of the photos that like have Delilah in them, and then he drops the photos off at Delilah's door, which gives her the proof she needs to like write a whole journal list takedown of Henderson. But then Delilah tells him bad news, which is it's not enough. The photos aren't evidence because Henderson is not in the photos and it's just Delilah. So Joe is like, no problem. I'm just gonna go back and torture a confession out of him. You know how it is. Basic solution. So, he goes to the house, but then the plan gets complicated because Joe sees Ellie there. Ellie's at the house too. And he's like, what? So Ellie is talking to Henderson, and their interaction looks normal, you know. He's like trying to get her an internship. But then Joe sees Hendy slip some drugs into Ellie's drink. And now you're like, oh no, right? So Joe is like, what the hell? And then Joe drugs Henderson's drink back when he's not looking. Thank you for the redeemed. Yeah, so hi Ninjash. Ellie passes out on the couch from the drug. And then Joe ends up drugging Henderson. So Henderson's knocked out, and he ties him up in his own like creepy little room where he keeps the photos. And he tries to get Henderson to like confess to him, to like his crimes. But then Henderson's like, no! And they have like a straight up struggle. They're like wrestling with each other. They're like fighting. And then Joe accidentally knocks Henderson down the stairs. So he's like, tuk, 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 tuk. And he hits his head at the bottom, like, boom! And then Joe's like, oh. Joe's like, oopsie! Joe's like, I didn't mean to kill him actually, like for real. So then he stages it as a suicide. And then he makes sure that like Ellie's okay and everything. And then the sound effects are very important. Thank you. And then he goes back to the storage unit because he's like, I'm not a terrible person. I'm gonna free Will, who's like in the cage. He's like, woo, character development for me. Yeah. So you see, what is this dude's body count now? 5? No, 6, including the loan shark. It's 6. So then, everything seems okay, right? But then the episode ends with Candace walking up to Love and 40 at a music festival, but she introduces herself as Amy. So she's like, my name is Amy. I'm gonna add that here so it's not confusing. But this is Candace, but she introduces herself as Amy to Love and 40. So basically Candace found him in LA, hiding. And then after meeting Love and 40 at the music festival, Candace is like working on 40 on his movie. So Candace is like trying to get into, you know, their little circle. She's like working with 40 on his film, and he even scores an invite to the Quinn family's like weekend party thing called the Welkend. It's a new like modern LA wellness retreat, so they go there to like, I don't know, cleanse their bodies or something. Which Joe is also invited to because Love is like dating him, right? So they go to the party, and then when Joe and Love show up, he sees Candace next to 40, and he's like, he's like jaw dropped. She's here to terrorize him. And then we see a flashback, so we see what actually happened between them. Basically, when they were dating, Joe kidnapped her, drove her out to the woods, knocked her out, thought that she died, and then buried her alive in a shallow like grave. But it was too shallow, and she managed to like dig her way out because she wasn't actually dead, and he didn't bother to check if she was dead. So basically, he tried to bury her alive, and that's why he's like here to that's why she wants to like ruin his life, which is like fair enough, right? Also to stop his murderous little spree. And then so present time, Candace is talking one-on-one with Joe, and she's like, I found you because there's a viral video. There's a viral video online of 40's like little meltdown at the party. Remember when he got rejected by the film agent, and he was like, so like it was all on video and it went viral, and Joe was in the video. So Candace is like, wait, I know that guy. And that's why she found out that, you know, Joe's in LA, and then like he's connected with 40 and everything. And then he's like, oh, get her out of here, because Candace could ruin his life at any moment. But in the meantime, Joe is introduced to Love and 40's mom and dad, and he realizes that her dad absolutely sucks. So her, no, not her dad, her mom. Did I say dad? Her mom, Love's mom, Dottie, like absolutely sucks. Because she walks up to 40 and just like slaps him. And then she's like, you embarrass me. And then you're like, whoa. And then Love like tries to comfort 40. And then Love ends up telling Joe that 40 was abused as a kid. And then she tells this whole story where there was a babysitter. So they had a babysitter when they were kids. And the babysitter was basically like a predator. She like came on to 40. And 40 didn't know any better because he's a kid, right? But then like they all found out and stuff. And then I forgot what she said. I think it was that 40 ended up accidentally killing the babysitter because he was trying to protect himself. And it's this whole story, and Joe's like, holy shit! Like, no wonder 40's growth is so stunted. He's traumatized. And no wonder Love is so protective of 40, right? because she's so afraid of like anything happening to him. So then Joe's like, wow, it all makes sense now. And of course, because they're like vulnerable together, Joe is like, oh my god, I love you even more now. And then there's this thing they say to each other to say like I love you, but instead of saying I love you, oh god, so cringe. They go, I wolf you, like the animal, like a wolf. They're like, I wolf you. It's like, ah! Anyways, after the whole like wellness weekend they have together, 40 drops a bombshell. 40's like, Will, I have an amazing idea. And then Joe is like, what is it? And 40's like, my new film is gonna be a massive hit. It is a live-action adaptation of Guinevere Beck's memoir. And then Joe is like, who? Joe's like, whose memoir? And 40's like, Guinevere Beck, you know? She like died and then the therapist like killed all those people. And then Joe's like, oh my god. And then clearly Candace is the one behind it, right? Candace was probably like, hey 40, I have an idea. So it's like this whole thing. And then he's like, ah. And then even worse is that Henderson, even though his like a death was staged as a suicide, it was ruled as a murder basically. So he's like, ah, frick, like everything's falling apart. Episode 6, they're at a funeral, Henderson's funeral, they're all there. And then Delilah is devastated because she's like, he's dead and I'll never be able to expose him for who he really is because I don't have proof. And releasing all those photos in the room will only hurt like the victims. And then the funeral is also triggering Love because she's remembering how her husband died. She's been through a lot, so it like explains why she's so impulsive and like fast-paced with Joe and stuff like that. And then so Joe right now is determined to get rid of Candace because Candace is like ruining his life. And he's like, but I love Love, stop ruining this for me. So he follows Candace to Echo Park. But it turns out that someone else is already following her, a private investigator that Love hired after catching Candace in a lie. So Love is very protective of 40, right? She realized that Candace lied about something at a party, so she hired a private investigator because, you know, their family's like filthy rich. And Joe's trying to follow Candace, but then he sees the PI following Candace, so he's like, whoa. And then, meanwhile, Candace, what was it? Candace breaks into Joe's apartment, basically, because she's trying to find proof. But then Love is there too, so Love catches Candace breaking into the apartment. And Love is like, whoa, what are you doing here? And Candace comes clean. Candace starts telling Love like the entire story, basically. Candace is like, you know, he did this to me, and everything. And then Love is like, whoa, what? Like, he buried you alive? So then afterwards, Candace is gone, and then Love confronts Joe. And she's like, what's going on? And Joe admits to her that, like, Will is a fake name. But the excuse he comes up with is that Candace is, like, this delusional, obsessive ex-girlfriend who, like, keeps following him everywhere. So he had to change his name to, like, escape her. And then he's saying, like, Candace is making up all this stuff about, like, you and everything. And then, Love is like, wow, that's awful. I'm so sorry, but I think I need some time, you know? So Love breaks up with him because, I mean, the guy you're dating has been lying about his name the entire time. It's, like, weird. So she's like, I need some space. And then Joe's like, and then without her, Joe's like, I have no reason to stay in LA. And then, but then while he's about to give up, 40 is like, hey man, don't be like that. I'm sure my sister still loves you. Just give her some time. And then Joe's like, oh my god, 40. You're right. Thanks. 40's like, no problem, man. 40's like so silly. He's so unserious. Anyways, meanwhile, Joe has some tension with Delilah going on, and since he's on break with Love, he's like, oh, it's not cheating if I like yoink her, right? So then Joe and Delilah get it on, and then that's about it. Next episode. So Love starts seeing this other guy named Milo. It's kind of like Rebound, I guess. She's like seeing Milo, who is like one of her friends. And Joe is feeling super upset. He's like, he's like really upset. He feels like paranoid and obsessive, you know. And but luckily for him, 40 also hates Milo. So 40's like, I freaking hate Milo. And then Joe's like, yes, this is perfect. Because suddenly, you know, he's Joe's best advocate. But Love still isn't like over Joe lying about everything. So he's like, oh, and he like goes on these like dating apps and stuff like that. But he's not really built to date through dating apps, so he reverts back to his comfort zone, which is spying on Love and Milo. So he spies on them, and then he rebounds with Delilah, who pops in to thank him for like encouraging her to keep writing that article about Henderson. And the news article is like a brilliant success, and Variety is like interested in publishing it. And then they do it together again, and then they end up doing it in public, so they got caught by the cops. They got arrested, but 40 bails them out, because 40's chill like that, you know? And also he has a ton of money. So he bails them out, and then 40's like, oh, they're also like super drunk, blackout drunk. So 40's like, hey, you guys can stay at my place. Or something. Oh wait, no, they sleep at Joe's place. And then Delilah and Joe are like, you know what? We're just gonna be friends from now on. Yeah, we're not really suited to date. So they're like, okay. And then one of Delilah's friends is a cop. His name is Fincher. And then he calls her to let her know that he's like, hey, I saw Joe on the night that Henderson was murdered. And Delilah's like, nah. So she tries to ignore the suspicions, but Delilah is really smart also, you know. Both Delilah and Ellie are really smart people. And she's a journalist, so she's like, there might be something weird. So she follows her instincts. She looks around Joe's apartment, and then she finds a key to a storage unit, which is like, oh no! Delilah goes to the storage unit, and she finds the plexiglass cage and plenty of evidence of his other crimes. And yep, so unfortunately Joe knew that she went to the storage unit because he installed cameras in his apartment, right? Because he didn't want the same thing to happen again that happened with Beck. So he's like, aw man, Delilah, like I genuinely like you as a friend. Like I don't want to do this. So he shows up in time to trap Delilah in the cage. And he's like, Delilah, I'm not gonna kill you, okay? Because like Ellie needs you. Ellie has no one else. Like you raised her, you're her sister, she needs you. I'm not gonna kill you, and you're my friend. And then Delilah's like, this is actually insane. Delilah's like, what the hell? Okay, next episode. Delilah's like, please, Joe. Please, I'm begging you to let me live. And then Joe's like, no, I will. I'm gonna free you, okay? I'm gonna free you like I freed Will. Oh yeah, he freed Will, by the way. And Will's like super cool with it. What happened? But then he's like, I'm going to have to leave LA though. And I'm gonna put you in time release handcuffs that will automatically free you after a certain amount of time. I just need to get stuff ready. So Joe writes like a heartfelt goodbye letter to Love. He's like, I need to get a new identity and skip town before I free Delilah. But before he can leave, a bunch of henchmen kidnap him and 40. And he's like, what? And he's like, what's going on? Like, he's being kidnapped. So Jill assumes it's people who want revenge for killing Henderson. But it turns out it's something very, very stupid. Basically, 40 plans the whole thing. So he arranged this whole scheme as a way to like get him and Jill locked up in a hotel room together so that they can write his stupid screenplay. And then 40 is like, I'm forcing us to work, and if either of us leave this room, I told the bodyguards to shoot us. And then Jill's like, what? Why would you do this? And 40's like, because I need to write my screenplay. 40's like so unserious. And then, very elaborate writer's retreat, right? And then to make things even worse, Ellie is there too. Because 40 was like, oh, Ellie is like awesome, you know, she's really skilled. She'll be able to help us with my screenplay. And then Jill's like, God, Jill's like, fine, if we write the screenplay quickly, like, I'll be able to leave the hotel room. And then I'll still have time to leave before Delilah's handcuffs release. And then, but then, Ellie critiques 40's script, okay? Ellie's like, this is kind of bad. Your writing kind of sucks. So she critiques him, and 40 again has a meltdown. 40's like, he's like freaking out because he can't take critiques. So he's like, and then he escapes through the hotel room window. He jumps out of the window because he couldn't handle it. He's like, so he runs out, and then Jill is like, wait! So Jill follows him out the window. They go to a bar together and then they have drinks. But it turns out 40 drugs him. 40 laces the drinks with LSD because he thinks that, like, if you take LSD, you'll have, like, artistic, creative, like, inspiration or something. So then Jill's, like, trying to stop himself from tripping out, but he is because they're on LSD. So Jill's, like, tripping out. He's like, ugh. And he runs into Love outside of the bar, but he isn't sure if she's real or not because he's like tripping balls. And then he can't like move or speak. And then like Love and her mom leave, and then Jill blacks out and he wakes up again, and he's in a hotel room with 40. Very bad trip. And it gets worse because 40 starts acting out the book that like Beck wrote, because that's what his movie is gonna be about, right? So 40 starts acting it out, and then Jill's like getting triggered, and he's remembering that like he did something horrible during his blackout. He's like, what if I killed someone while I was blacked out? And then 40 reveals a traumatic memory to him, which is that he killed his babysitter who was like abusing him and like grooming him. And Jill's like, oh my god, like, thanks for opening up to me. And then he thinks that the only person who can guide him through like this tripping is Love. So Love professes her love to him all over again on the phone, and Jill has a revelation basically. He's like, oh my god, she still loves me. I have to stay in LA, so I'm gonna stay in LA after all, and I'm just gonna find a way for Delilah to stay silent. So then the LSD wears off, and Jill goes back to the storage unit because he's like, okay, I'm gonna free Delilah. But then walks in, and Delilah is dead. Her throat is slit. She's lying on the floor. And Jill is like, did I do this? He can't remember. He's like, was it me? And poor Delilah's dead. I loved her. It was so sad. So Delilah's dead on the floor. He's like, was this me? Like, it could only be him, right? So he's like, did I kill her while I was like tripping out? Next episode. He's trying to piece together timelines about what happened. He's reading his old text messages, and he's like asking people that he ran into, like, he's like, what happened, you know? Kinda really like this part. Yeah. So then, he's like, I don't understand. Did I kill Delilah? So he's trying to figure it all out. And this is like the one person he genuinely didn't want to kill, right? So at Anavrin, Jill learns from Calvin, the boss, that he and 40 stopped by Annabrin during their blackout. So he retraces his steps to 40's house, where like 40 tells him that he dropped him off to see Delilah. So Jill's like, oh, then it must have been me. So after Jill leaves, Candace comes to 40's place, and then she basically helps 40 piece together while working on the script of the movie of Beck's book that Joe is actually the one that killed Beck. So Candace helped 40 piece it together, and 40's like, oh my god. So now that's going on, and then Candace tracks down Joe in the storage unit where Delilah's body is decomposing. And then she's like, I got you! Like, I caught you in the act! So Candace pepper sprays Joe twice. And then locks him in his own cage with, like, Delilah. And then Candace is like, I'm gonna ruin your life. So Candace texts Love. And she's like, Love, you have to come by right now. I'm gonna show you who Joe really is. So then Love's like, okay. And Joe's like freaking out. He's like, no! Like, she just told me she loved me so much. We're gonna have a life together. And then Love shows up to the storage unit. And then she's like shocked. She sees Joe on the floor, in the cage. She sees Delilah dead. She sees like Candace. And Love is like, whoa, what? She's like, oh my god. And then Candace is like, yeah, I've been telling you this the whole time. Candace is like, I told you it's all real. Like, he did it. He killed Delilah. And then he's gonna kill you too. And then Love is like, oh my god. And then Candace is like, yeah, like that's what I've been saying the whole time. And then from inside the cage, Joe like breaks down and he admits everything he's done to Love. And he's like, yeah, I did all of this. I'm done, okay? I'm tired of this. And then he apologizes to Candace for burying her alive. He's like, I'm sorry I did that. Anyways, and then Candace is like, what should we do with him? And then Love is like, wow. And then she stabs Candace in the neck. What? What? You hear gurgling sounds. She shoves a broken bottle into Candace's neck. And there's gurgling. Candace is shocked. And then she dies. And then Love frees Joe from the cage. What? Oh my god. This part of the episode, I was like, so shocked. Jesus Christ. Okay, guys, we're on the last part of season 2. I might have to continue tomorrow if you guys don't mind. Do you like this, by the way? Or should I stop here after season 2? I don't know. I'm kind of having fun though. I might continue this tomorrow. But yeah. Did you see it coming at all? It's like kind of, wow. I mean, I don't know if I saw it coming. We're only halfway through. Yeah, we are. I need to like... I need to speed up. I might have to save season 3 and 4 for tomorrow. It like greatly pissed me. Season 4 greatly pissed me off. Kind of did because of her behavior of her brother. Yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, it was crazy when like she just stabs Candace out of nowhere. I was like, what the? We're on the last part of the episode. So, last episode, Joe is like, what the hell? Joe is completely shocked, right? Just saw her get absolutely murdered, and Joe's like, what? So then Love is like freeing him from the cage, and then Love confesses her love to Joe again. She's like, I love you. And then he's like, what is going on? Like, he's like completely, his brain is just broken at this point. He's like, what? Because someone like out out crazied him. Basically, he's like, and then she starts telling him, she's like, actually, the truth is, I'm the one that murdered 40's abuser, the babysitter that groomed him. She's like, I'm the one that murdered her, and we were kids, and I framed 40 for it. So you're like, wait, she's so protective of him this whole time. She's so loving, but she's the cause for his like whole guilt, you know. He's so guilted that he killed someone when he was a kid, and it wasn't even him, it was love. So she confesses to Joe that like she killed the babysitter, and framed 40 for it. So Joe is like, what? And then Love reveals that she's the one that chose Joe and stalked her way into his life. So she saw him and she's like, oh, we could be like a family together. And then she lured him in, and she purposefully would go to like the supermarket that like he would go to so that he would see her and everything. It was like this 4D chess moment. And she already knew like from the beginning what Joe did and who Joe was. And like that made her like fall for him, because she's like, we both like would do anything to protect like people we love and stuff. So she's like, we're the same, we're kindred spirits. And then she reveals that she's the one that murdered Delilah. And then to protect Joe, Love comes up with a scheme basically. So she's like, we can set up Ellie for Henderson's murder, and then we can stage Delilah's death as a suicide in reaction to the Variety article that she's gonna release. And then Joe's entire fantasy of Love goes up in flames, because now he's like, you're crazy. Like, you're not this woman that I like put on a pedestal and I like idolized and idealized and fell in love with. Like, you're insane. Even though he's like the same, he doesn't see that, right? So he's like, you are diabolical and evil, and I don't love you anymore. Like, I'm immediately over you. You don't fit this image that I had of you in my head. And then he's like, I'm going to kill her the first chance that I get. Like, once I'm out of here, I'm gonna kill her. But then she reveals that she's pregnant with his baby, and he's like, oh shoot, I was about to kill her. And he's a romantic, right? He's a romantic guy, so he's like, oh, I can't pass up the chance to be a dad. I can't do that. So he's like, fine, I'm going to put all of me in, and I'm gonna tell Love that, you know what, we're in this together, and I'm gonna raise a kid with you. And then he's like, he deals with the whole Delilah mess, basically. He tells Delilah, you have to leave LA. Ellie. He tells Ellie that she has to leave LA. And Ellie's like, well, why? My sister's still missing. I can't find her. And Joe gives Ellie like a bunch of money. And he's like, you gotta get out of LA. I called CPS on you. Like, I called Child Protective Services. And they're gonna come, so you have to leave LA, like, soon. And Ellie is like shocked. And she's a smart girl, right? So she immediately pieces it together and she realizes her sister is probably gone. Like, her sister's not coming back. And she knows that Joe has something to do with that. So Ellie starts crying and she's like distraught. And Joe thinks it's like he's like helping Ellie out by like giving her all this money and stuff, but he's the one that ruined her life. So basically on the other side of town, 40, after figuring out that Joe's the one that killed Beck, he visits the therapist, Dr. Nikki, in prison to confirm that he's innocent, and he's researching, right? So Dr. Nikki warns him. He's like, hey, Joe's really dangerous. Like, in all of our sessions, everything he said was a complete lie, blah, blah, blah. So he's like telling 40, like, this guy lies, he manipulates, he's like a psychopath. And 40 was like, oh my god, I have to protect my sister. So Joe and Love still attend like this wedding together, and but then they're like attending this wedding together, and then they're like trying to lead a normal life, but then afterwards they go back to Anavrin, and then 40 goes there to confront them, and 40 is like threatening to kill Joe. So he's like, I have to kill him, like you don't understand, he's gonna kill you, he's a psychopath. He doesn't know that like Love knows everything, right? So 40 just wants to protect his sister. He's like, I'm going to shoot you. But then Delilah's cop friend Fincher walks in on the scene, and what he sees is 40 holding a gun up to Joe and Love, right? So Fincher immediately shoots 40, and then 40 dies, and Love is completely devastated, and she's like screaming and crying because like 40 was so important to her. And then it's like this whole scene, and at this point Love has nothing to lose now, right? And she pulls the most diabolical plot yet. So cold. She pins both of Henderson and Delilah's murders on her own brother, 40, so that she and Joe can get away with everything. And then basically that's what happens to season 2. Love and Joe skip town, they leave LA. And then at the end of the season, you see they're living in like a nice suburban area. And they have a beautiful little house with like a little baby and a little fence. And then it's like they're trying to start their life over again. So that's the end of season 2. Whoa! Crazy. Season 3 is kind of funny to retell because of one character. Oh god. I'm like thinking about him. Okay. I had to change the title of this video, because we had to do season 3 and 4 tomorrow, if you guys are okay with that. If you guys mind me doing another stream on it. And then move my chat. There we go. Well, my face hurts from like talking so much. Ooh, stretch. Season 3 and 4 tomorrow. Man. Sounds like you're having so much fun, it's great. It's a wild story. God, there's this character in season 3 I can't wait to like retell. He's so funny. He's a MILF hunter. But yeah. Let me see who's streaming right now. Oh, gosh. Any thoughts, guys? Yeah, that guy. He's crazy. Like some jaw stretches, drinking water. Oh, my neck hurts. I hope it's a good retelling for those that already know the show. But for those that don't know the show at all, I hope you enjoyed me telling you about what happened. My thoughts are, I'm remembering why I dislike him so much. Yeah, he's something else. Oh, I had to cross out 40. Poor 40. Just some LA guy. Poor 40. Just an LA guy. Yeah, honestly, I feel so bad for 40. Like, his traumas, and then also the whole guilt of killing someone was, like, because of love. Love is a great character, though. I genuinely really like her. Not for her actions, obviously. Cause, 40. I feel so bad for him. 40 is also like really fun to talk about because it was like, who just does that, you know? They lock them both in a hotel room. He's like, we have to write or we die. I'm looking at pictures of Love now. Her actor, Victoria, is awesome. They pinned 3 deaths on 40 or 2. 2. They pinned 2 deaths on 40. Yeah, her actor, Victoria Pedretti. She's so good. She's so good. The acting was like phenomenal. She's an amazing actress. But yeah. I'm looking at pictures of her. Love 4003. Yeah, tennis reference. Okay, let me post that. I'm gonna continue tomorrow. That picture of Joe, the compressed image. Sorry. It took 3 hours to explain seasons 1 to 2, so I need tomorrow's stream to explain season 3 to 4. Anyways, yeah, I'll continue 3 and 4 tomorrow. It's over. Yawn. I don't work tomorrow, we good. Let's go! I'm gonna try my best because, I don't remember season 4 too well, so I'm definitely gonna have like the Wikipedia up so I can remember certain plot points. Season 3, I do remember, but mostly like the really key parts. Season 3, the thing that I remember the most is just the MILF, the MILF lover guy. That's funny you don't remember the recent ones. Yeah, I blocked out 4 because it pissed me off. Oh, Marianne, yes, from season 3. 4 pissed me off, so I blocked out like most of the plot. And I still wasn't too into part 1 of the season. I wasn't too into like the characters and stuff. Meanwhile, I think season 1 and 2 like really gripped my attention, and that's why I remember them well. Yeah, the revelation of love was insane. It was like actually so well built up. The twist in 4 was horrible. Yeah, for sure. It was like, I don't know. It's like something I expected, but then I was like, they shouldn't go with this, but then they did go with it. It's like, oh. The part, though, that pissed me off the most was the last scene. I'm not gonna describe it because, like, you really need to go into it blind. But the last scene was the one that pissed me off the most. I was so frustrated. God. I'm like searching up the scene now. Yeah, no, I can't play that. There's so much blood. But yeah, the scene where Love kills Candace was like, oh my god. Oh yeah, the time difference. Man, so hard to choose times where like everyone I know is available. Whoa, had a little hiccup. Anyways. None of my friends are really streaming, so... I think I'm just gonna let you guys go. And, we'll continue recapping tomorrow. Sounds good. Take care, guys. Oh, wait, will there be a test? Hi, Sarah. Didn't study at all. No, there will not be a test. There will only be frustration and anger. Super distracting at work. Thank you, thank you. Let us go just like that? Yup. Do with your newfound knowledge as you wish. Gonna let you guys go out of my plexiglass cage. And, yeah. I'll see you back in the cage tomorrow for season 3 to 4. Woo! If you guys have like any questions at all about like the plot from today, you can always ask me. I will always talk about it. Man, maybe I should do more recaps. Why did he move across the country and make another cage? He moved across the country because at the end of season 1, Candace walked into the bookstore and she was basically like, I know what you did, I'm gonna ruin your life. And he was like, oh my god. So then he escaped to LA. And then he made another cage for like security purposes. So basically, yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed that. I'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow. Alright. Bye-bye. Take care. Bye. Waving, 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 waving. Bye.